It's the Justin Palmer Show. Here we go. Woo!
Victor Reyes. What's up, man?
How are you? I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm just chilling Hawaii style.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Were you guys in Lani Kai?
Close. Yeah. We're in a small town close to there.
Oh, okay. Cool.
Yeah. Oahu. It's getting crazy here right now. COVID.
How so? Oh, really?
Yeah. It's spiking.
No way.
Yeah.
I thought they weren't kind of like letting people in.
They're not. Man, I don't know what to think, to be honest. Like, it's
Interesting.
Yeah, I know. We're getting right into it. We moved out here in March. Fled New York City. Timing was incredible. Yeah. COVID wasn't really a thing. I mean, it shut down, right? The entire economy shut down, just like everywhere else in the US. It just there wasn't that many cases, right? And I don't know if that was because there wasn't that much testing or if people just weren't going out, but like the hospitals were empty. Our neighbor, her daughter is a nurse, and like she was saying, it's completely empty. And then right as school was about to start, cases started spiking. And so like 300 a day ish, which is, I think that's a lot for here, right?
It's a lot for Hawaii.
It's a lot and it's all on Oahu. So things are a little crazy right now. Our kids' school opened the school and then closed it.
Really?
So, we're back to that homeschool life. And, with three of them, it's what, dude, we had 3 days of complete peace with the two older ones gone. We just Anna and I with the baby. It was incredible. It was like a full day of meditation in our house.
Yeah.
It was nice.
I know, man. It's the thing with the kids. I just started to have to draw boundaries.
Yeah.
I do so much to engage my child and make activities for him. We go swimming, we play baseball, we go for bike rides, we do a little wrestling, we'll do some boxing, we'll do like little foam sword fighting, we'll build Legos, we'll you name it, man. Like playing rock, paper, scissors, 20 questions. And I'm like, I'm not getting anything done. I was like, yo, you got to learn how to just entertain yourself. Like I don't, I'm not helping you by making life a giant mall for you. Like, you're going to be bored. Like, you have a giant yard. Like, figure it out.
Totally.
Not to be rude, but it's like, when I was a kid, I didn't get any attention.
Yeah. Yeah.
Any. My parents were drunk.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
that's wild.
Well, I mean, they were at the bar drinking, and the only rule was I couldn't sit at the bar stools.
Wow. Both your mom and your dad?
Yes, separately.
Wow.
Like, yeah, man. Like when my son was my age, when I was 6, yeah, I was in a bar.
Wow. Yeah. Where did you grow up?
Milwaukee.
Okay. That's like beer central, I feel like, for America.
Yeah, I mean, it's just the culture. It's the culture in the Midwest.
Yeah.
I don't drink. Obviously, it had its effect on me, but it was like it's just what it was, Yeah. It was like you can play under the bar stools, just don't eat the peanuts.
Do you still like peanuts?
I do like peanuts a lot. Actually, I forgot to buy those today when I was out grocery shopping. I love peanuts.
Yeah.
Hold on.
All good.
I'm back.
What, dude, totally. When I was a kid, my mom used to just lock me outside. Like we had like a pretty big yard, and I would just shoot. I was too much to be in the house, I think, from what I recall. I was wild.
Yeah, kids have manic energy, especially boys.
Yeah, they need it, dude. Our neighbors, we just had a new family move in. There's like a ton of people moving to Hawaii right now.
I bet.
Especially from the West Coast, right?
Yeah, I bet.
And they've got 3 boys, and we went over to their house. They just finished their quarantine. We went over to their house, and my kids are like, the kids are just instantly magnets, right? It's like with our 3, their 3, it's like a small school, right? And they go to the same school, which is incredible.
Nice.
The boys, but the difference between 3 boys versus boy, girl, dude, the boys were just like fighting the entire time. I was like, oh, man. Dude, their house must just get destroyed.
Yeah, I mean, at least it's like you guys are with it, because like of all my friends, I'm like one of the only ones that has a boy.
Mm.
And so anytime he does some boy stuff, everyone's like, oh. I'm like, yo, he's not woke.
Yeah.
He's 6.
Right. Right.
Like, how do I teach him that that's no? You know what I'm saying? It's like they have to hit that wall a bunch of times for you to like curb the behavior.
Totally. And,
really
and maybe it shouldn't even be a no, right? Maybe it should just be like an awareness thing or something too, right? I mean, are you finding yourself like questioning that?
Yeah, I definitely I looked at it from the outside. Now I'm looking at it back from the inside. It's just kind of like a learning curve, but we were in the Bay Area and it was like so similar people, and like if you move, you'll find instantly that people like, Manhattan values aren't Hawaiian values.
Totally. Yeah.
And you have to make an adjustment, but then you also have to make an allotment and be like, I'm going to take a little bit from column A, a little bit from column B. You kind of got to keep your bullshit detector on because people are bringing a lot of their own baggage to things these days.
Yeah, for sure.
That's how I feel personally,
Yeah. Did you feel that's heavier in Detroit than San Francisco, or is it just different?
Yeah, man. San Francisco, people were just too busy living the best life to care what anyone else was doing. This is like small town USA. So
yeah,
people are very concerned with like keeping up with the Joneses and like, there's nothing but gossip. You know what I'm saying? Like I was listening to that Dave Cho JRE, and he was talking about how people crush his hand when he meets him. And like, I was like, yo, that's weird. Because when I moved here, I met like 15 people that all crushed my hand when I met them. But it's like, they're way more aware of who I am than, not to be egotistical, but like, it's a small circle.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's just one of those things. But, in San Francisco, no one cares who you are.
Right.
You spend so much time there. It's like, oh, there's Mark Zuckerberg. Let's get a coffee.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like
right.
No one's fanning. There's no fanning.
Right. Well,
it's like
it's too big. It's the same thing with New York City, right? It's like, you're just too busy. I mean, I lived in New York City for 15 years. I barely knew any of my neighbors. Right?
Exactly.
Out
and
here,
that was fine.
It was like when we moved here, it was the neighbor soiree. Like people were coming by and like, oh, who are these people from New York, right? What are they doing here? Are they going to stay here? What's your plans? I was like, I don't know. We moved in yesterday.
Yeah. I was like, do you need a blood sample?
Yeah.
Like, what's up?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's strange. That's a strange one, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. The anonymity of cities is like, it's magical and like, I miss it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I definitely, I feel that way as well. Right. I mean, I can see there's benefits to both sides. Like we wanted to be more a part of a community, right?
Yeah.
Obviously with COVID, you're like questioning, I'm questioning that because I'm like, okay, how do we interact? I mean, we moved here and it's been locked down since the day we got here, literally the day we got here. So we have our neighbors, right? Which is great for the kids. And thankfully there's kids up and down the street in either they live here or their grandparents live here, which is incredible, but it's pretty limiting too, right? For sure.
Hamburgers or hot dogs? What are you having?
Dude, I've eaten so many fucking hamburgers in the last 5 months. Literally, every time I ask Max what he wants, he's like, hamburgers. I'm like, all right, let's just go.
That's my joke on middle America or America at large. Yeah.
Yeah.
You can have 1 lump or 2.
Yeah.
Be happy about it. Yeah. No, I know.
Well, what prompted that move? Because you were busy in San Francisco when we met.
Yeah.
Right? Just so everyone knows, Victor and I collaborated on a project. Victor did some art and custom art for a real estate project that we built. And when we met, it was like one of those things. It was an instant click, right? We had it. There was like some scuffling over the contract with some team members with you. And then once you and I talked, it was like, it was fine. Everything was good. Right?
Yeah, that was unique. I was like, oh, this guy's like got a light in his eye. He's not just like developer demon from Wall Street, I was like, he's all right. I remember when we met and we went up that big elevator.
The construction lift?
On the outside of the building. Yeah. Like whatever, 10 stories. But I was like, this guy's either so good at the long like manipulation or he's a genuine human being. And I was like, I think he might be a genuine human being.
I try to be.
Yeah, I know you were. I was like surprised because most people in that capacity are just like, okay, great.
Yeah.
So you can do it for my price? All right, we'll talk later.
Yeah.
We'll never talk again, but like, you'll get paid some money.
Yeah.
And you weren't like that. And it was like you weighed in on a couple of the like tension points creatively or whatever, not with a heavy-handed opinion, but with like, yeah, man, just do you. And
right.
I was like, sounds good. We kept it moving. Because, I mean, at the end of the day, that's a funny thing when art meets acquisition or money or whatever.
Yeah.
People are hiring you, but then you get the cooks in the kitchen and, there's always going to be them. But it's like, once you put too many of those people in there, or too many of the opinions, one will cancel the other out quickly. And then, you're not doing anything. You're not moving anywhere. You've got a positive force and a negative force and you stay in one place.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it was good, man. You alleviated all that. We moved right through it. And that was a great project. Yeah, it was like one of many that I had done. The move was basically like San Francisco is amazing for being an entrepreneur. It's amazing for being an artist. I had won a lot of like commission contracts and they were great. But, you couldn't make a vertical move there unless you were in tech. And I didn't want to, go inside to one of these places. I did like a job for Facebook and I moved a couple of lifts in for them because they didn't know how to do it. And one of the people there was like, would you like a job working here? And I was like, well, make me an offer. And what does it pay? And she was like, not much. And I was like, I don't have that kind of time. I can't drive down here for 2 hours just to move a lift. So I was like, I'll show you how to move a lift for free, like right now. But yeah, I always defer to the idea of, I'm kind of getting off on a tangent here, but the adventure and the unknown versus like riding a desk into the future, to quote, The Informer, that Steven Soderbergh movie. I don't want to ride a desk into the future for some kind of security. Yeah. I'd rather be insecure. But yeah, so I moved here to get some security, sadly enough. Like I just been up and down and I was like, I had X amount of dollars and my business would go up and then it would go down and it would go up and it would go down with finances. Because every year, it was so expensive to be in the city and the overhead was so high that I was like, I should invest in some property. And, I looked at some property, found a place, and it was a good deal. And the place I bought had gone up a bunch in the last couple of years. And I was like, it's unlikely it'll do the same, but it'll do something. And I bought something that I could always, turn around and sell if I had to. I bought a nice piece of property that I could put my business in and, use it as like a center for production. And, then I also knew that something was happening. I knew a correction was coming. And I knew it'd been a long time, and I just didn't want to be in the city in an apartment when it happened with a 5-year-old or a 6-year-old and a wife. And I was like, I got to get out. I just knew something was coming, and I was like, I got to get out of here. Yeah. And I didn't know what was coming was this. But it's been nice to have a, 3,000 square foot home with like a giant, like, half-acre lot or whatever it is, Dude,
it's incredible. I mean, it looks incredible. From the photos you sent me, it looks amazing. It looks like you guys have really like made it home. And I think the fact that you can work from home right now is, I know it's challenging when you've got the little one running around. I'm definitely like, okay, how can I fit 8 hours into 2? Right? How can I fit 4 hours into 15 minutes? Right?
Exactly. Yeah. It's all pivots and just realigning what you're doing. Yeah. Today I came up with a good one because he came down and was like, will you play with me? And I was like, I forgot what he was doing, but I was like, hey, do me a favor, go grab this and grab that. And he brought it down and I was like, great. Because my son's very helpful. And I was like, all right, well, you got that vacuum, why don't you vacuum the studio floor? And he was making this list of Legos he wants because he's pretty good at putting together like advanced Legos. And I was like, all right, I'm going to hire you as a studio assistant, And like, he made like $5 today. I was like, I'll pay you $2. He's like, I want $3. And I was like, I like that. I was like, I'll tell you what, you do the hallway and the entryway and all the extra, like not just this room, but that room over there and the bathroom and this and that. I'll pay you $5. So he did a really good job. I was impressed.
I like it. That's awesome. Yeah. It's pretty cool to be able to integrate with what you do. Right. Yeah. I think like the crossover in that I had my son do a lot of the audio engineering testing, right? Nice. With me. Cause I was like, oh, I've never done this before. Let me figure this out. I was like, Max, come here. let's do this, man. And they love it, man. It's a beautiful thing. I've always felt like making him a part of whatever I'm doing is important. But I think that's a great thing. I wanted to go back to something you mentioned because I was curious about this. We've had so many conversations, and I don't think I've ever asked, have you ever had a desk job? Or did you go straight to art?
Have I? I've had a lot of jobs. I've worked a lot of odd jobs. I never had a desk job. The closest I ever got was out of high school. I worked at a title company in South Orange County, and yeah, it was terrible. I lasted a whole 6 months, maybe 4 months, but they just hired me to do a kind of gopher like mailroom. Like people take one look at me and they're like, "You could start below the bottom." I mean, now it's amazing. And then you get me in a room with someone who's actually got a brain, and I'm like, I'm doing well. But yeah, for the most part, yeah, I'm. It's not that I'm unhireable. It's that I can work myself out of your job and your coworker's job. Like I work, so a lot of jobs are kind of like, I don't want to say below my aptitude because there's a bunch of skills I don't have in a sense, but I can pick them up pretty quick. Yeah. So it's just the job thing. I'm way more suited to be an entrepreneur.
Yeah. I mean, how did you going into that title job? I mean, nothing wrong with working at a title company for sure. Right. Mm-hmm. It's definitely an important part of the process of like private property. Very administrative for anybody who doesn't know, right? Or hasn't bought a house.
Find this number.
Yeah.
Find this number over here. Find this number over there.
And did you know right away that like that environment was not for you? Or were you like trying to figure out how things worked? Like what was that like to go in there? Because you've always had that passion for art, right? So what was it like as like, at the time, were you thinking, I want to be an artist and this is a path? Like how did you feel about it?
Well, this was 1997 and I was 18 and I had just graduated high school. And so at 14, I told my parents that I was going to be an artist. And, I started painting graffiti. And to me, there was no difference between art and graffiti. And now the institution in the industry of art will put a giant wall between that and say, it's about $150,000 wall. It's called art school. And they'll say, that's fine if you want to be a graffiti writer, but, you need to come get codified or, get a stamp on your professional passport here at this industry. And then maybe you're going to play the maybe game for a long time.
Right.
But I just didn't see a difference in it. And the longer art's gone on, those two things have really come together. And now like the top paid artists are graffiti writers or were graffiti writers or have graffiti names. But I was in a lull. I graduated high school and, the beacon wasn't always bright, but I knew what I wanted to do. And that was a weird time because I had kind of been like, graffiti's pretty lame. It's fun to paint, but the people are pretty lame. It's kind of zero-sum game landscape, and it's not really feeding my artistic interests as much as reading a book or making a painting on a canvas. And I was just like trying to find something to do. I was, for some reason, I was originally going to move somewhere and then didn't. And then I was maybe going to go on a trip to Europe and then I didn't. And then I just was like, I'll just get a job. Man, maybe I'll go to city college. So the fire was burning, but at a low ember. Mm. And a couple of things happened. And then I set off on another adventure when I moved to San Francisco. But no, working at that title company was in no way, shape, or form. I was just trying to see if it was a good job for me. My friend's girlfriend worked there, and she was like, get a job here. You can make good money in a couple years. It was like, this is a really nice road to nowhere.
Totally.
And I was like, kind of young and naive. Even though I had that like fire that what I wanted to do, it would waver, it would go in different rhythms,
Yeah. Did you like question yourself? I mean, I'm sure that in the conversations that we have, like that process of, I've come to the realization that like creating whatever your medium is more of a freedom and a spiritual process in a way, if that makes sense. I don't know if that's the right word. it's more of a meditative freedom than anything that exists in the commercial world.
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes sense.
No, yeah, it does. Well, that's the big takeaway from graffiti. Graffiti is just about self-permission. And what does that have in common with being an entrepreneur? The same thing.
Right.
What does that have in common with selling yourself to a group of people that don't know who you are and don't care who you are? Same thing.
That's great insight.
What does that have in common with like meeting your wife and convincing her that you're a good person?
Right.
Same thing. It's about permission. And permission is given freely in our society to some people, and other people, there's a big wall. And the wall may be put up by them, might be put up by their parents, might be put up by their social status, their class, the class structure. And it's really about the individual realizing that there's a big wall there and being like, I got to get that out of my way. And that's how I've moved through all these different concurrent like iterations of my life, is just realizing like I'm hitting a wall. This is a wall. Like South Orange County was a wall. Like I wasn't ever going to be successful in South Orange County. But if I just hopped the wall or went around the wall, well, there was a whole other landscape. And like, now when I go back to South Orange County, I'm very successful. You know, a bunch of the kids that I went to high school with that still go to the reunions, they're like on my Instagram, like, look at this guy. He's great. Thumbs up.
Right.
You know? It's like, I didn't stay there. I mean, there's one lady who I went to high school with. She just posted that her kid graduated from the high school we went to, or it was like a sophomore or something. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it's like, I just think it's about removing the presuppositions, the allegorical wall of your limits, you know? And I did learn that from graffiti, so I can't knock graffiti.
Yeah.
But it's not solely exclusive to one domain. I think, you know, you can apply that anywhere.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you think that wall is like self-created?
A little bit. Yeah. I think it's half like, it's like allegory of the cave. Like, hey, the shadows, man, these shadows are important. Like, you don't know what those shadows are about, but you know, it's shadow play. They don't matter. You got to turn around and see the guys carrying the buckets up the water and the fire making the cast shadow on the wall. And wait, what's that? None of that stuff even matters. There's a light up there. What is that? You go out there and it's like, what? There's more? You can go up on the mountaintop? It's like, it's the symbol, it's the concept of enlightenment, but there's many different like levels you can rest on and be an expert, you know? And like, I've always constantly never been an expert, and I've always just been like moving through these levels, trying to get these walls removed so I can get some sense of what's actually happening here.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And it's tricky. It's
For
tricky
sure.
because I mean, I'm always putting walls up for myself, and then I always look and I'm like, I'll take one down and there'll be one already built that someone else put up, you know? So I'm like, what's going on here?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's definitely a labyrinthy landscape.
Yeah. I mean, I think that in a lot of ways, that's like the human experience, right?
Yeah.
It's just part of being human, and part of where, when we were talking, you know, prior to going live here, I was mentioning to you that I just finished MetaHuman, and it's a book by Deepak Chopra. I'm realizing more and more, because I've experienced that as well, right? I grew up in a town that like, I just knew I had to fucking leave. Like I don't know what it was in. People ask me, I'm like, I don't know. I knew I had to get out of there. Right.
Yeah.
And when I look back on it, I know why. I was hanging out with a bunch of kids on the street, because that's what we all did. You know, like my mom was a single parent, and she was working to try to, you know, make the ends meet. And that was my example of like, that can't be all there is to life. Not that there was anything. My mom did an incredible job, right? She held it together through a lot of ups and downs. And I'm always like real appreciative for her. So shout out to my mom, because she's a beautiful soul. But there's like something in you, right? That, you know, you have to move, you have to transcend this place to go to another place on the next part of the journey. And like, how did you experience that in Orange County and like going to San Francisco? Did you like know anybody in San Francisco? Was there like a jump that you made, or did you we were like, fuck it, I'm out?
I had a couple numbers of people. I knew a couple people. I had friends of friends. One of my friends was like, I got a room for you, $300 in 1998. And I was like, really? And he was like, yeah. And I was like, all right. He had just gone up there, met these guys. They had an opening. I didn't know them. I just showed up with a truck, moved my stuff in. Turns out they're all on heroin.
Oh, shit.
And I'm like, what's that smell? They're like, it's incense. I'm like, okay. They're all like these two rich kids from Orange County, pretty affluent kids, not going to school and just smoking heroin. And then the third kid was like a down and out wrong side of the tracks kid who was also just smoking heroin when he wasn't doing meth. And like I was in that house for like a month because I just didn't know. I didn't know what the smell was.
Yeah.
You know?
It's a fucking nasty smell for anybody that hasn't smelled. I've been around meth as a kid, never heroin that I know of, but it's fucking disgusting.
Yeah. But I moved right into the frying pan. It was like, whoa. I mean, I didn't stay there long. I think I only stayed there like 6 or 7 months, you know? There's many fist fights in that house.
It probably felt like an eternity at the time, right?
But it's the same thing. I was like, I gotta get the fuck out of here.
Yeah.
Like, I can't. This isn't how Vic's story ends. He doesn't die in this part of the labyrinth. You know, I don't start smoking heroin. I don't accept this as the new norm.
Right.
You know, I was taking kung fu from this Chinese gangster in like Upper Haight area, and
like in a gym or like you're just
he had a gym.
Okay.
Yeah, he was like a son of a kung fu family, like in China, but like kind of half legit, half criminal.
Yeah.
And his deal was he was gnarly dude. You know what I mean? And like I guess in China, the kung fu families all vie for like, you know, hierarchy, and the kids like go fight, you know, and they'll be like sticks, knives, hands, chains, like, and he was like one of those dudes. He was a gnarly guy. Like he was showing me how to wash my hands and sand and the gravel. Shit. He's like, you just want your hand like a brick.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, and I mean, that was good though. I mean, martial arts was good then, it was good now, you know.
Was that your start?
They were full on like slap box, like no gloves. Because I remember the first time I sparred, I got my bell rung. I was like, whoa, what is this? Like, what do you guys do? This is just street fighting. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think one of his students like actually ended someone's life in a bar fight.
Oh shit.
Yeah, it was old days martial art.
Yeah.
Like, you know, it was gnarly. It was gnarly stuff.
Yeah. It wasn't Fight Island in the UFC with a referee.
No.
Yeah.
No, it was gnarly. I was doing that and I was painting a little. I had originally moved to San Francisco to go to City College, and I wanted to be a writer, like a novelist, or like, because I love books. And I realized that 19, I was like, I don't have anything to write about. I don't know anything. You know what I mean? So I hung that up and just, again, went back into visual arts and just started painting a lot of graffiti and did that for like 10 years. And then that turned into some other thing.
And what were you doing during that time? I mean, when you were painting graffiti, like, how were you living? Were you doing anything? There like a job?
It didn't cost much to live back then.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Not like it does today. The inflation gains weren't so strong. I think my rent was like $300. I had a bike, you know, probably like $200, $300 a month in groceries.
Yeah.
What was I doing? I was working weird jobs. I worked at a flower shop. I worked as, what else did I do? I worked in a couple of restaurants trying to be like a waiter or something. But again, they were like, no, not you. And then I got a valet job, and that changed everything. I started valeting cars, and I got really good at valeting. Like, it was pretty lucrative. I was making like $3,000, $4,000 a month, which was big money back then.
Totally.
And then the restaurant that I was working at was really popular. It was like a hot, cool spot. It was called Foreign Cinema.
Oh, yeah. I fucking love that place.
Yeah, everybody loves that place.
Yeah.
I was there the day they opened it. I was there the day they opened it. I was the valet, and they loved me there. And they were like, why don't you be a bartender? You know, and I was like, okay. So I just ended up like doormanning and bar backing and bartending, and I did that for a long time. And I bartended to like 2008-ish for a long time. And then I just started to make really good money off my art. And then I stopped bartending.
What led to, so you were making art the entire time? Like you were balancing?
Oh, the entire time.
Yeah.
Like on my own.
All
in
paint?
my bedroom.
All like painting? And stuff?
Yeah, paintings on canvas.
Mm-hmm.
Like I was doing graffiti still. I was learning how to screen print in my basement. I mean, basically I left out a part of the story. Was like I had gotten an interview to get like a potential scholarship in Southern California from Pasadena Center for Design, which is a big art school.
Okay.
I think it was that one. Yeah, I think it was. And I looked at my drawings right before I was supposed to go, and I flaked on it because I was like, I'm not good enough. And I just didn't go. And I knew art school cost about $100,000, and I didn't have that kind of money, and I knew it was a sham. I was like, this is a Ponzi scheme. You're gonna charge me $100,000? Now it's not even living costs, to get this degree, to be approved by you, to what? How long is that gonna take me to pay back? Like, people are saying you're gonna be a starving artist. Like, what am I gonna do with this basket weaving degree?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
I was like, I just instantly was like, hey, if you're worth anything as an artist, you'll figure it out while you work odd jobs.
Yeah.
Because, I went the Charlie Bukowski method. I was like, if it's gonna be, it's gonna be. Like, art school is not gonna make it happen or not happen.
Yeah.
Plus, these people that have a fire, they're gonna get extinguished in art school because I know it's a soul eater. Everyone I met that went to art school was like, oh. I mean, so many kids that went to art school, and when they stop getting mad at me for being somewhat successful, we can have an honest conversation. They're like, how did you do it?
Right. Right.
I was like, I didn't gas out in art school.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like that's kind of, I don't know. I feel like college is that way in a lot of ways in any area right today.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I can totally resonate with that because when I was looking to go to business school because I thought that was like practical.
Pretty good. It's better than art school.
Is it? I don't know, man. I had worked similar to you. I had worked a bunch of odd, weird, shitty jobs, right? I had done like labor ready, literally day labor, cutting paint in an auto body shop, working in a restaurant as a dishwasher. And I worked my way up to night cook, right? Super glamorous job, right? Closing down the restaurant and cleaning up all the shit from the day. But those all,
You've been a cook.
yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
That's a hard job.
It's a hard job. That's man, this guy, I remember my first job as a night cook, and there was another guy training me that was like 50 or 60 years old. I don't know exactly how old he was. I was like 16, 17. And he would always walk around with a coffee mug and he's like drinking it nonstop at night. And I asked one of the other guys, I was like, dude, how does that guy drink coffee at like 10 p.m. at night? And he's like, have you noticed that the box wine goes real fast? And I was like, holy shit. Right. I'm like, okay, that is not for me. Right.
No. Yeah,
and you put together those series of things and you come away with it of like, I've got a work ethic, and I went to school after those experiences, right? Cause I dropped out of high school. And so I was like needing to prove to the world that I could, Justin Palmer could graduate from an institution. Right. And as soon as I started studying business, I was like, dude, what the fuck is going on here? They're like teaching me terms about things. And I was like, I can't do 4 years of this. Right. And there were some classes like, look, taking a basic accounting class, it was incredible. Right. Taking a basic macroeconomics class, it's good. Like those are good life skills to understand no matter what you're doing. Right.
Yeah.
However, I couldn't sit there and just like, I felt like I was being taught what to think and not how to think. And so I switched and I ended up majoring in history, and it was like a 180 because the school I went to in New York, public school, $4,000 a year, right? Nice. Great value. The history department was like 10 people majoring in it. And so the teacher, when you decided to be a major in history, they're like, the teachers would just pour their souls into you. Right.
That's awesome.
And I had such an incredible experience of like, that's the first time where I really learned how to think, which is what the skill that I needed, which like what they all taught was like, history is subjective, right? There's multiple sources, almost none of which are actual true primary data sources, right?
Yep.
So you have to develop the most believable story and argument that you can understand. Right. Yeah. And history is not about like coming up with an answer. It's about the thinking process and how you're able to pull on different aspects of information. And I used it to study as much as I could about the world. And I took like really interesting courses on like the life of the Prophet Muhammad. Right. And like, that was like a fascinating course, but that I needed to develop that. And I saw that same illusion with schools. Like, I don't need a stamp I knew I needed to do it because I dropped out of high school, and just to like enter, I would go try to get a job somewhere and people would look at me like I had 4 eyes, right? They're like, high school dropout, never going to make it, right? Oh yeah, I think we have, you can take the garbage out, right? You can fold the cardboard in the back, right? And I was like, okay, I did those jobs. And when I looked around, I was like, that can't be my life, right? This is not where the labyrinth ends for Justin Palmer, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So I can totally resonate with that. And so you chose not to go to school, pave your own path.
Yeah. I mean, I focused on like adult education, self-education, like continuing education. Like I'm constantly learning new skills. I taught myself the computer, not maybe to the level that I would have got if I would have gone to a program, but I learned it to make money.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like that was a really big hurdle in the early thousands, was a lot of people were illustrators or painters or drawers, but they couldn't digitize their work. So I learned to digitize my work, and it's like building a slab for concrete. It's like, which I also taught myself how to do recently. It's like, watch some videos, read some books. Well, back then there wasn't videos as much, but just open it up. It's like kind of a video game in a sense, where it's like press the buttons and see what happens.
Yeah.
I remember I had a hard copy book that would explain some of it. That was really good. But I mean, I figured out how to ditch dig basically digitally, and that was one of the first ways I started making revenue as an artist.
Oh wow.
Yeah, because anyone could draw. But then I knew my worth. That was like a big thing, like knowing your worth and being able to pass on things. I always say like being an artist is just like being a gambler, which is kind of like anything in our society. Totally. But I was just able to, like my first gig was not in-house, but it was freelance at like a apparel company. And, the owner was, I wouldn't say he's affluent, but he had family money. And he was a bored trust kid, trustafarian or whatever. And his favorite thing to do was mess with the employees. And I saw it right away. I saw it. I was like, oh, this is your game, is like give them one sharp stick and let them fight for it. And then you'll come in and undercut the bottom line for yourself. And that's like money you can put up your nose or like embezzle from your company, Right. Like I saw his game right away. And so I was like, oh, you're going to take this position? I'll take this position. And he wasn't a worthy adversary, but it was fun to beat him the couple hands we played. Yeah. Yeah. And then I realized I had some business skills, I could read the room a little bit, Yeah. Which isn't always easy in every industry, but him, it was a cool education, because I was like, wow, most of the people I meet in that realm they're not all that bad. Some people are better, but like it's cool to spot those people and be like, oh, okay, yeah, I get you. Yeah, I get what you're doing here.
But it's like the ocean, man. There's sharks in those waters, right?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Everywhere you go, no matter what part of the ocean you're in, there is life that eats life, right?
Yeah,
and that's
right?
business. It can be in a lot of ways, right?
Yeah,
I think there's like an alternate universe of that where you can do what you love with people that you love. Yeah. And do well at it, right?
Yeah.
It's weird. I think there's like, I've been thinking about this lately there's like this obsession with scale in our society, right? Where you look at Amazon and it's like, I watched some documentary, I think it was Frontline, I can't remember. I'll try to find it and post a link for this episode. But I mean, they were definitely demonizing like Amazon and Jeff Bezos' like super cutthroat tactics, which is like one side of the story, right? But I was just fascinated with the obsession with scale. And I think that's how people operate. It's like that zero-sum game, right? That zero-sum game that's constantly being played. And it's just transactional, where
it is.
When you loop it back to like how we met, my thinking on it was like, why are we hiring an artist if we want to tell him what to do? Right? Like,
why don't we just hire the artist we want?
Why don't you just hire a union painter, right? And tell them what to do. Like that, I didn't understand that concept, the whole idea of it for me. Also probably why, it's a challenge for me to operate in that business environment, right? Because I don't want to interact in in that level, right? I want to work with craftspeople that are passionate about what they do, and let them create just the way that the universe was letting me create that property at that time, right? But it's that obsession with scale is getting real fucking dangerous, in my opinion, right?
Yeah.
And I think you see that in those, like to have learned that so young is such an incredible experience, in my view.
Yeah, I think that's like what they call the Pareto distribution.
Oh, I've never heard of that. Pareto?
It's Vilfredo Pareto. He was like Italian or Spanish. I think he was a mathematician. I might be wrong, but it's part of game theory.
Okay.
But it's the concept of like Amazon has such a large market share because that's the Pareto distribution. Like Jeff Bezos and his company are part of a hierarchical structure that like ultimately like the top of the high, like the New York Yankees always win, right? Or did, the 1% of the wealth is in like 500 people's hands, whereas the bottom 9 billion have not that much.
Right.
It's like games always aggregate towards a winner.
Mm-hmm.
And that, I'm not explaining it very well, but that's kind of what I think the obsession with scale is. It's somehow unconsciously, we all know on a obvious, like conscious level that like to win the game is good, but then on the chemical level, the dopamine that gets dropped for Jeff Bezos, like if you measure Jeff Bezos' dopamine and then a homeless man's dopamine, they're not the same distribution of dopamine.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then if you measure Jeff Bezos' dopamine the day he had to give up a bunch of his money for divorce, it was low that day. You know what I'm saying?
Maybe it wasn't. I don't know. Maybe
maybe he thought he got off cheap. I don't know.
Yeah.
But
no, I know what you mean.
Yeah, but it's chemical. I think all this stuff's chemical. I think evil's chemical.
Mm-hmm.
I heard I was listening to Jordan Peterson, and he was talking about Hitler, and he was talking about Hitler's deal with like purity. It was chemical, and that like, not explaining it away, but he was basically saying like people that are like germaphobes. I met a bunch of germaphobes since this COVID thing, and it's really interesting. They're like, I'm a germaphobe already. I'm like, okay, like what's that like?
Yeah,
but it's this chemical sense of purity.
Yeah,
or like selecting out, or like presenting. Like where I live, it's all about your lawn, and I got this crazy garden that I bought from the lady I bought the house from, and people they reject it. But people from California love it. Right. Because it's a different sense of purity. It's a different chemical purity.
Sure.
I don't know. I get lost in it, but it's hard to unravel. It's a Rubicon of things, but like, I don't know, man. There's something there in the scale thing. Like I see it. Everything's got to be a fucking boat show. Right. Or it's not worth anything.
Yeah. Well,
like,
I've been there myself, right? In what I'm trying, I've been there myself in what I'm trying to do, right? Where you're like, this has to be fucking big, right? It has to be big. Everything that we do has to have like that scalability. And I tried the last few years, I've like divorced myself from that philosophy because it's a game, like you said, right? It's just a game. Yeah. And like the winning and losing and letting go of like the expectations of that and the Deepak Chopra calls it like the external rewards, right? Mm-hmm. That helps allow you to be like in the now, right? Like in the present moment. And I think I think that as a society, we're failing to be in the present moment, right? Where like it is a challenge to teach your kids to be a totally incredible husband and get your work done all in the same place, all when everybody's in the same place at once, right? And like people are experiencing that right now, right? A lot of people are experiencing that with COVID. I think it's an opportunity for us as a society to take a step back and say, is the game that we're playing worth it? Or is there something else? Right? Is there an evolution of this? Like I'm a believer in a free market, but I'm also, we were talking a little bit about Peter Schiff, right? In his interview with Joe Rogan. I had never heard him speak before. I had never heard anyone with that type of view really speak before, right? I mean, I've heard about what are they called? What's his like political identification? Is he a libertarian? Is that?
He might be. Yeah. I don't know. I think all that stuff is.
Yeah. It's fucking nonsense, but
yeah. Totally.
I believe in that small government, right? I believe that I believe in the Jordan Peterson, like, equality of opportunity, not equality of outcome, right? Because I do think that humans want different things. Like some people are okay just hanging out with their family. Some people are okay with hanging out with their family part of the time and then doing some creative thing or doing some business or whatever, helping other people in society. And that's fine. We've gotten away from like some of the basics though, which are just like, let people do what they want to do. Right. And I think like part of that is the education system, which we were also discussing a little earlier, is I think it trains people to be productive and also compliant in the same way. Like you're conditioned from the time you're 5 to just go to this place and be there for 8 hours. Then the expectation when you graduate is you go to this place with a bunch of people that you don't fucking know, right? And you have no idea what their value systems are. And you're supposed to sit there and work together and be productive. I think there's like, isn't that weird?
Yeah, it's super weird.
That seems fucking strange.
You have to buy into the hierarchy.
Right.
See, I was always an outsider and I was always tracked out ever since I was a kid. Like when I moved to South Orange County when I was 9, I didn't even know I was like Latin. I didn't know I was Mexican. And some kid was like, "You're a beaner." I was like, "What's that?" And he's like, "A wetback." And I was like, "What does it mean?" And he was like, "You're less than me." And I was like, "Really?" And he was like, "Yeah." I had to go home and ask my parents. And
what did they say?
So that's the hierarchy. So right away I was like, that's bullshit hierarchy.
Yeah.
I was like, I can kick that kid in the head.
Right.
You know what I mean? I started doing martial arts. I was like, I can run faster than him. I was like, that's like a prerequisite that I didn't set up. But in South Orange County, that rings true. It's very segregated in its way. And like, I just never bought into any of the hierarchies. So it's really easy for me to assess my own value. But most people don't. Most people, they watched Full House or, they love Friends. I love Friends. I don't love Friends. I don't relate to Friends at all. I just read Old Man and the Sea by Hemingway. I related to that. But it's like the narrative of what's relatable in our society is hierarchical, I feel like. And it's really easy for me to get in it for a second and be like, oh yeah, we're at this baseball game. I want this team to win. All right, whatever. I don't care. But I see people go off the deep end with that because that's a fucking life raft, man. That is all they have.
Totally.
They're like, I know where I am. I'm in this hierarchy, and and my grass is good, and your grass is bad. And it's like, okay, whatever. It's just how you ascribe value or how you prescribe value. And some people, I think, are completely hierarchy based because that's what kind of keeps our society functioning civilly.
Yeah.
Like is the hierarchy is intact. Like this is a no, this is a yes, and a lot of that stuff is good. A lot of those norms are good. Murder bad.
Right. Right.
Stealing's bad. But it's a situation where I think free thinkers are people that are more aware of like their conscious experience in this dreamlike reality, can kind of get behind it, whether it's meditation or working out or whatever, and you see that the self is not the hierarchy. And although the self can be hungry and need to transact in the hierarchy to get sustenance, it's not a one channel kind of a thing.
Right.
But I see a lot of people that I'm surprised even completely subscribing to the hierarchy, completely subscribing to the sense of like NPR PhDs, like I noticed when I was a dad for the first 3 years, I was like hooked on NPR. And if you asked me a question that they covered, I had an answer to it. You know what I mean? Like I knew where I stood on everything. And part of me felt like that was me being conscientious as a father. And about like 3 years in, I was like, I'm super tired of Terry Gross telling me how to think and feel. Like I disagree. And then I started being in my head like, I noticed like I'd listen to I listened to Questlove be interviewed on some podcast, and then I listened to him be interviewed by Terry Gross. And it was like pedantic how she was talking to him. And to the point where he's like, hold on, Terry. And he claps back and she's like, blah, 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 blah. She doesn't even know what to do.
Right.
And I saw David Bowie do the same thing. And I was like, man, these guys are really smart. They're really talented and they're artists just like me. And they have a really unique voice. People think David Bowie is like Aladdin Sane or Ziggy Stardust. And like, he literally says this in the interview with her. He's like, yeah, I've had a career for 40 years, Terry. She's like, but where are your parents from? And he's like, gee, I wonder. You know, he like basically, he's smarter than her. And she's like doing this little hierarchy dance that she does. And it's really interesting to the people that like to watch Friends or whatever. You know, this is Friends for the pseudo-intellectual of America or wherever.
Yeah.
And it's just interesting to see these really developed personalities clap back in their ways and kind of hold court with someone who's supposed to be a professional court holder of the hierarchy.
Yeah.
And, you know, just some of these like little windows into what's happening, you know, they make me question everything and they make me, I'm really cautious of just drinking the Kool-Aid, you know, for my child, for my wife, you know, I like to hear all sides, but I don't want to feel any type of way about it.
Right.
You know, I don't, like people have been so upset about the Trump thing and it's like, he is a deplorable human being. But at this point it's camp. Like we're all putting up with it. No one stormed the White House.
Right.
You guys are storming the Instagram feed with it, but like they, you know, in the past, they would put his head on a spike if it was that bad.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, so what's the deal?
Right.
Like, how much do you really care?
Yeah.
Like, how much of this is a distraction for you to just have something to be upset about?
For sure.
You know?
Yeah.
It's weird. I think just overall, like, everything should be questioned a lot.
Definitely.
A lot.
Definitely. I mean, I think that's part of life, right? Is that I think I like your philosophy because it's like, stay open, right?
Yes.
Don't try to be right and wrong all the time, right?
Yeah.
I agree with you, like rules are important. I'm even questioning some of that stuff right now where I'm like, these laws, especially around COVID, like I was going for a run the other day and my neighbor was like, oh, can you do that? And I'm like, bro, the fucking beaches are closed. Gyms are open. I'm not paying for a gym where I have to wear a mask. I'm running. Like, I don't, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's,
You're running 6 feet away from everything.
Yeah, I'm running fucking 100 feet away from everything, right?
Yeah.
There's like, come on. Yeah. I'm going to do what I do, right?
Yeah, I mean, I just think as human beings, we go into a big group think because it's how we've gotten here, you know?
Yeah.
It's like, don't play with fire. That's a good idea.
Yeah.
You know? I don't know what the COVID thing is. I feel like part of me thinks it's way less deadly than it could be. And then there's a part of me where I'm like, or this thing could have like multiple stages and be like, we have no idea how deadly it is.
Totally. Yeah.
I don't know. My neighbor caught it. He was a healthcare worker. He got over it in like maybe like 4 or 5 days.
Yeah.
He had bad PPE.
Yeah.
He was trying to help someone and he didn't have filters in his mask. And, you know, I mean, his house is like 20 feet away from mine.
Yeah.
Like, we have a lot of space between us. But, like, I mean, I was talking to him maybe like 3 weeks after he had it, after he was healed up, you know, and he'd done his quarantine. And we were like, you know, he's a good dude. Like, he lived. His wife got it. His kids didn't get it, you know. And, you know, I mean, I don't know. I just don't know what to make about any of it.
Totally.
I think, you know, it's a election year.
Yeah.
So there's a big spin they can put on it for that. There's also, I mean, the economy's not been doing well.
Dude, I had a bet with a friend of mine, which I unfortunately won because similar to you, I was thinking something is coming, right? Like there's going to be, I think a lot of people were, right? There's going to be a downer. We can't go on this road. I started my business in 2012 and we had a great run. And I'm like, this has got to end at some point. Like, let's
Fourth quarter of 2019. I just heard it, but they're like, that's when this started.
Oh yeah. We're in a full on, I think GDP growth was like, I've only been monitoring that because the bet over Korean steaks was around negative GDP growth.
Yeah, for sure.
And it was down like 9.5%, right? And I'm looking around. I'm like, out here, the retail, how are these companies? They can't be surviving, right? Even if you got the triple P loan or whatever, you cannot be surviving for that long. You have to let people go. If you're letting people go, that means there's people that are jobless. If there's people that are jobless, that means they can't pay their things unless they have savings. And if they're using their savings, it's gonna run out soon. Not everyone has, most people have like, it's paycheck to paycheck, right? Maybe you have a month saved. And that seems like it's like watching a fucking train wreck in slow motion right now.
Yeah.
Right?
We're going like the Argentina route.
Potentially. Right. And I think like I
don't want it.
No.
I see the writing on the wall.
Yeah. Well, look, I think I'm a believer that I think we live in an incredible place, right? Like I think we have a quality of life that's beyond. I haven't traveled everywhere, but I've been to enough places and seen enough things where I'm like, America's pretty fucking good, right?
Yeah.
You can come from someone with, a challenging background and you can create anything you want in this country, right?
You can dream.
You can dream, and that dream will play out, positive or negative, right?
Yeah.
Whatever you decide to. I've been processing, like Tony Robbins has a saying, like where your focus goes, your energy flows. And my interpretation of that is where your consciousness goes, your energy flows, right? What you allow to exist around anything in your life is what you will experience, positive or negative, right? There has to be that dichotomy for you to see both sides, right? And I think we're experiencing that in our country right now. There's a bunch of fucking tons of social issues, right?
Yeah, many.
There's tons of injustices that are going on. Like I heard the guys from the Innocence Project on JRE the other day talking about people that are in jail for like marijuana crimes when it's legalized in that state now. And I'm like, how the fuck is that even possible? Like, I don't smoke weed, right? But
if you dig into that, it's really sketchy because it's all aggregate of the war on drugs. And at the same time, the CIA, the Reagan administration, Clinton administration, they were flying more drugs up here than anyone.
Totally.
They made it illegal. They made a bootlegger's market.
Right.
And they were paying. Where do you think they get this money from?
Yeah.
It's all drug money.
Yeah. Have you seen that documentary on Freeway Rick Ross? The real Rick Ross?
I haven't. I know what you're talking about.
Oh, dude. You should fucking watch. It's incredible. It was like, I've seen a bunch of that stuff. I love Narcos, and like, which I know is like a total dramatization of it, but it also has some facts in there. And I've watched like Cocaine Cowboys and stuff like that. The Freeway Rick Ross really brought it full circle, where you're like,
it makes sense.
It totally makes sense. It totally makes sense, right?
Yeah, how would he sell that much dope without a source?
It is wild, right?
You're a businessman. It's not like 100% profit in drug sales. It's still got a huge overhead.
Right. Well, his story is just like, he gives you the specifics, right? I don't want to spoiler alert it for anybody, but it's definitely worth a watch for sure.
It's a company with 3 letters.
The CIA is wild. The CIA is like, I'm like halfway through this book, Ghost Wars, and I've picked it up and put it down because it's so detailed. It's about the CIA's history in Afghanistan, which goes back this guy is like naming specific names all the way through the book. And it's just this interconnected web of fucking training, funneling money, paying drug dealers, paying farmers with like opioids and stuff like that, sending guns, sending tanks, training, like funding the freedom fighters, which everybody knows now. But this is like, it's the most detailed history I've ever seen in anything about just Afghanistan and the CIA being in there. It's a fascinating read. I need to finish it. But
the modern world was built on skullduggery.
Yeah.
And that's that, Well, it's sad. Yeah. It could have been built on something else, I think. But
we have an opportunity we do have that opportunity to take it to another place. Right. To me, it doesn't feel like that's going to happen in 2020. Right. Cause to be honest, I've only watched the news like 4 or 5 times since I moved out here. Right. In 5 months.
I don't watch the news straight up at all.
Yeah.
I scan the Apple like news headlines for a laugh.
Right.
And not cause it's not happening to me, but just because I'm like, it's ridiculous.
Yeah. It's a cartoon.
Yeah. I tuned into the George Floyd situation cause it was one of those like well-timed slaps in the face.
Yeah.
I was like, really? Still we're here?
Right.
We're here right now?
Right.
And I, between me and you, I've been pretty bummed since Rodney King, that kind of like officers operate with impunity. Growing up as a kid, I had guns pulled on me by cops.
Yep.
In LA. I've gotten into situations with cops that weren't the best, but they do whatever they want.
Right.
One time I got arrested when I was a kid, and they took my pants from me as evidence.
What?
And put me in the holding tank just in my boxers. Yeah,
dude,
because they can do it.
Was that?
You know what else they did? They filed me as a felony, even though I didn't do anything.
Yeah.
And left me in there.
Yeah.
For like 4 or 5 days, and like my buddy's dad found me. I think I was a minor still. No, I wasn't a minor. What was I doing? I had just moved to the city, and I think he was. I was staying with my buddies, and I was with my buddy, and that's how they found me. And he was looking for his kid, and he found me too. And he posted both our bails.
This was in San Francisco?
Yeah.
It was it graffiti related?
I mean, that's not even bad. What?
Sorry, was it graffiti related?
It was, but I hadn't done anything.
Yeah.
Like, we were like thinking about painting. We had some paint on us, and I seen this guy, and he was a cop, and they had this alley staked out, and really weird. That like never happened.
Yeah.
Someone had taken me to paint this thing, and I think what it was is, I think the guy who took me to paint it had a deal with the cops. I think he had gotten busted or something, and was like, "I'll give you people." I think that's what it was. But I was like, I knew it was up. I was like, "Yo, don't." I was with my buddy, and I was like, "Don't do anything. Hold up." And I was like, "Let's get out of here. This is weird." We started to walk out of there, and we hadn't done anything. And just because we had a couple cans of spray paint on us, they just did whatever they wanted to us.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah. But I mean, that's nothing compared to losing your life or getting beat senseless or But I mean, they just do whatever they want whenever they want, and it's part of the deal. And like, I'm happy to see that there's some repercussions there.
Yeah. What's your view on like defunding versus training?
I don't think they should defund them. Yeah. Because people need police officers. I mean, there's gonna be situations that are unresolvable, especially as like a property owner, where you're like, yeah, I don't want to shoot my neighbor. Like, I'd just rather come to you de-escalate it.
Right.
Or vice versa, like my neighbor's got a lot of ammunition.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, in America, it's crazy. I think they need a lot more training.
Yeah.
I've always, probably for like the last 20 years, I've really been like, teachers and police are some of the glue or the lattice work that holds this society together.
For sure.
And like, they not only need to be paid appropriately, but they need to be trained adequately.
Yeah.
I mean, I just don't. I had a art teacher who was cross-eyed, who critiqued my work in high school and failed me. And I wasn't drawing anything that much different than I'm getting, And I had to be honest with her, and I was like, "Listen, your critique is meaningless here. You can't see straight." I told her this in front of the class. She was like, "Ah."
Right.
But it was what it was. You know what I mean?
Totally.
It was like, come on.
Dude, there needs to be a process, just like in anything, right? There needs to be a process to filter people out, right? Because like I mean, you can also start at the beginning and try to get the right people in there in the first place, right? Which like, it still doesn't mean you're still going to have to filter some people out, right? Yeah. You never really know. I mean, by the way, being a teacher is a stressful job. People have been talking about like police is a stressful job. So is being a teacher, right? I mean, kids are wild. Right. And you have,
a lot of kids, not even just one kid. A lot of kids,
like 20, 30 different kids. I feel like teachers find that like beautiful meditative mom state, whether they're male or female, like they find that really caring state for the most part. Like the ones, especially you see it in early childhood, which is where my kids are at, where, I mean, they're all incredible. All my teachers were great. Right. And when I was in elementary school, I have nothing but like fond memory, even when they were strict, right? It's like they were good human beings, right? And I agree with you. Like there has to be we've got to restructure a lot of things, right? And I think that starts at the state level. It's interesting. I've got a friend of mine from college is running for lieutenant governor of Virginia. I'm talking to him next week. I was like, dude, why the fuck do you want to do that? Right. And he's in the community. His family lives there, and he's going after some of those changes of like marijuana laws. Right. there's like another issue in Virginia apparently with like broadband and all this stuff. But there's like I was like, what are you talking about there? What was he telling me? That there's no parole in Virginia. Your sentence is your sentence. And I was like, whoa, what? How does that even make sense? Right? Like if there's no possibility of redemption, that just seems like a recipe for disaster. Right?
I mean, you bring up an interesting topic, because that is somewhere I do weigh in. Is I think prisons are wrong. I think, I mean, you just look at the numbers. You're like, oh, so all these people are from minority communities. Most of them are down and out. I mean, they have white collar prisons for white collar criminals, right? But like the massive incarceration is people that are already at the bottom end of the distribution.
Yeah. Why do you think that? I mean, like what?
Structural.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's the equality of opportunity situation. Like the individual needs to have such a you need to be so powerful to go away from the hierarchy. It's the allegory of the cave again. Your friends, your peers, your community will tell you what your reality is.
Right. Do
you know how hard it is? You know how hard my life has been I constantly am at odds with my environment. You know why? It's not the one I like. It tells me that I get the bottom end of the distribution. I'm like, that's not what I'm taking. I'm taking what I want. I'm going to put in what I need to put in. And a lot of these people don't have that strength.
Yeah.
To hold out. So they're like, yeah, all right, I'll just, I'll do whatever the community's doing to get by. And generally it's illegal, or it's something that, maybe it isn't illegal, but maybe you couple it with something else. You're hanging out with someone that's doing something illegal. But I mean, I just think it's structural. It's a situation where like, okay, this is just wasted resources. This is wasted manpower. It's wasted potential energy. And they're not doing anything in there. Well, now they are. The private prisons got them making jeans and, all kinds of stuff. But
right.
Before that, I mean, they should be re-educating these people, or educating them initially, or, giving them some kind of structure.
Yeah.
The fact that we're just wasting this, like the amount of people that are incarcerated, it's sad.
Yeah.
I mean, it almost begs to ask the question of like, who benefits from this great sorrow?
Right. Follow the
You know
money.
what I'm saying? Like more than economics, it's like a spiritual black hole. That's the stuff that really, I don't know if it keeps me up at night, but it makes me really wonder what the deal is.
Yeah.
Because it's pretty stinking thinking.
It's definitely, I don't know the numbers on incarcerations. I actually want to research it, because one of the things that I've been looking, yeah, for sure. I mean, I know in broad brushes, I know that America has like the highest level of any country, right? And it's kind of
very
odd.
puritanical.
Yeah.
And it's like solution.
Yeah.
But it's like that. How does that help anyone?
Right. Well, it's like I'm sure you've heard of that Stanford experiment, right? Where they took normal people, created like, it was a study where they created people to be prisoners and prison guards. And then like in the first, I think it was the first like 24 hour, don't quote me on any of this. Don't quote anything on any fucking thing in the show.
It was quick. I know what you're talking about. I've heard the numbers.
It was like 24 hours and people were like going ape shit, right? They were like torturing each other, right?
The jailers.
Right.
Not the prisoners.
Right. But it's a natural dynamic, right? There is a human element of like good and evil. Right. And if they're not channeled properly at the highest level of consciousness, then shit goes crazy. Right.
I think too, it's like our society is, I mean, we're probably like about a good 100 years, maybe more, maybe like 120 years into marketing.
Yeah.
What's marketing?
Yeah.
Marketing is the ability to sell you something that you don't need and doesn't work.
Huh.
That's what it is. Sell you something like, it's like that. What's that saying? Sell ice to Eskimos.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's marketing.
Yeah.
Like you won't be whole until you change your X3 to an X5.
Yeah.
Don't worry about the cost. It's going to pay off.
Right.
Who fucking needs an X5? Like an X3 is not good enough. Like, I don't get it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's this multi-tiered thing of like, you're going to signal out that you're that much better. you know?
Yeah. Well, it's related to your ego for sure.
Yeah, it is.
Right.
It is. But that is, I feel like, the thing that that's the biggest wall society as a whole is up against, is that feeling of wholeness from consuming, or that feeling of like being complete by like, I mean, that was a big thing with college, right? Like, well, you're incomplete without a college degree.
Right.
You're like, really? Like, incomplete? Like, I got 10 fingers, I got 10 toes.
Right.
Like maybe if I couldn't see, I'd be incomplete, or I couldn't hear. But it's a weird thing, you know? It's a weird thing.
I think, I've had my own experience with that, especially being in a heavy finance, capital markets related business in New York City, right?
Yeah.
Where and especially coming from not much, right? Where I grew up pretty humble, right? There was that phase, there was like an acquisition phase in my ego where I was like, I just fucking I want what that, whatever the top of the top, the best of the best is, right? Yeah, and then as you start to get those things, at least for me, I was like, I don't feel anything from this. I actually feel worse, right? Because I'm not, and what I've figured out is that I'm not being who I truly am in these situations. Therefore, I'm not being authentic. And like, one of the things about doing this is I don't want to market. We don't need to like drive a bunch of traffic, right? Like, of course I'm going to do the best that I can, obviously, right? I think I think all of these discussions that I'm having are important. I think all the connection points, because you literally never know what someone's going to identify with, right? Or what they're going to take away with it, what they're experiencing in their life. And I want to just put out good shit in the universe. I don't want to grow it with a marketing strategy. If it's great, people will resonate to it and they will share it because it means something and it's authentic and it's pure, right? And I know that's like, people are telling me like, hey, that's great, but you should like market it. And I'm like, dude, no, I am marketing it. I'm putting it out into the universe, right? I'm putting it on. I have YouTube. We've got the channels. I'm signed up with Libsyn. It's got distribution. Now I was like, just fucking enjoy building this. I want to enjoy having great conversations, right? I want to enjoy putting that out into the universe. I want to enjoy the learning process in it. I want to enjoy helping people get their message out and their story out. And I'm really glad that you were interested in coming on the show, because you have such an incredible, like, it's already evident, right, in what we've already discussed, and we're not even like through anything, right? You have such a unique journey, and I think that you've not given in on those walls, right? The things of going through the labyrinth. Like, that's, someone will resonate with that, right? Because there's fucking millions and billions of people in the labyrinth right now, right? And my message is like, hey, there is no fucking labyrinth. That labyrinth is just created, right? And it's created by you, and just accepting the now of whatever this experience was meant to bring for us and for the world, which I know sounds kind of out there, is part of the process, right? We're both going to take things away. Every time I talk to you, I take away incredible things from our conversations. We always go like deep on society and the spiritual front, or whatever you want to call that, right? Consciousness and virtual reality, or the matrix, like whatever it is, right? And I think people need to hear those conversations, right? Because right now you're hearing like, these people fucking said this person said that, this, da, da, da. I'm like, dude, who gives a fuck, right?
Reactionary.
Yeah. Who cares, right?
It's basic. Yeah. It's not. That's the cool thing about boxing, is like, people, they do stuff to you.
Right.
They're trying to get a look at you, and they're trying to like, scare you, and you can just sit there and be like, I don't have to worry till you get in firing range. You know what I mean?
Right.
And then I have to do stuff, but like till then, it's like, that was the cool thing, is like getting into some kind of homeostasis with the self.
Yeah.
Where you're like, all right, you said some mean stuff. Like the other day I was over here and people were in a line, and I was like in my car, and I kind of went around someone and they got real mad, but then looked like they were just doing something else. So I flipped me off, and then they drove in front of me to prove a point, and then I drove behind them because I was going where they were going, but I didn't know yet. The guy parked and runs out of his car. And he's like, "You drive like an asshole." And I was like, "Hey, buddy, relax. Like, just calm down." And he was like, "Rah!" He was like so ready for a fight, you know?
Yeah.
And I didn't realize what was happening, but he was like afraid. I wasn't following to taunt him.
Right.
I was just going to where he was going. But he ran out of his car. And at first I thought, I was like, oh, this guy's going to like run up on me or something? What's happening?
Yeah.
Like, I don't really know what's happening, you know? Like, big deal, you flip me off. I don't really care.
Right.
And like ran into the store, but like yelling at me. And I was like, all right, well, just calm down. It's like, just breathe. And like, he had to have the last word. He's like, I am God. I was like, okay, all right, man. Like, just, we're trained right now, man. The media got us trained. Like, you did this, it's the end of the world.
Right.
It's like, no, the end of the world's coming. Wait for it.
Yeah, it's not this. Yeah. It's not the turn signal I didn't use. Right.
Yeah.
That's wild, dude. Every time that shit like freaks me the fuck out because
Really?
Not in like a I'm scared way. Like I've done enough martial arts and training that I'm comfortable in a scenario like that, but I don't ever want it to go there. Right.
No,
I don't,
you have the control. That's what martial arts is.
Totally. And like this, I took this like seminar from a guy named Tim Larkin, who was a military intelligence guy, and he wrote a book. It's called When Violence is the Answer. And his tactical training methodology is like, it's training for real violence, not like boxing, striking, kicking, like shutting down someone's fucking CPU, because that's the weapon, right? Yeah. You got to shut down the CPU, and you need to do it first. You need to do it fast. You need to do it efficient, like all those things, right? It gave me a totally different perspective on violence, even in the context of martial arts, right? Where like martial arts is sport-like.
It's a game.
Right? Yeah. And what he did, which is fucking fascinating, he went in and studied prison fights. And he was like, if you're not prepared to go where they're prepared to go, you will 100% of the time be the victim.
Yeah,
right?
It's gladiator stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm always like, dude, you just never know. Like someone pissed in their Cheerios that morning. Their wife talked to them bad. Their kid did something, whatever, their boss, like this is like Michael Douglas in Falling Down, right? I don't know if you ever saw that movie. It's crazy.
Yeah.
But
that's why I'm always just like, it's okay.
Right.
Like that was like one situation. I had another situation this year where like talking to someone and they were like, they tried to get into it with me too. The same thing. Like I saw their fight or flight kick up, and they're a fighter. They're like a sucker puncher, you know? And they were like, be careful what you say to me next. And I was like, what? I was like, all right. Cause that's the cool thing about, I've done enough like street fighting. I've had enough fights with my old man, like real scary violent stuff where he's like, I'm like, why is that gun out? You know? And I've done enough like just stuff in life where I'm real like, I understand what you're talking about playing for keeps, and like it's different than lacing your hands up, you know, or wrapping your hands up. But just in those moments, like that's martial arts trained my fight or flight really well. And I'm like, oh, this person thinks it's like it's gonna get violent. And I'm really good at like not putting my ego in that situation. I don't have anything to prove because I'm not a big guy. So I'm like, what? Oh, no, like, no, just chill. Like, it's not that. Like, but listen to what I have to say. Be careful what you say. All right, but can I say this thing and then we just listen to what I'm saying? And it's not an insult, you know. And then it takes them, you know, the guy's like all angry and scared because that's what it is. You're scared, you know. And you're just like, just calm down. It's okay, man. My bad. My fault. I'm sorry. And I can do that. It doesn't cost me anything.
Yeah.
Because I know what you're talking about, and I know what that is, and I know I can smell that on people. Yeah. I got in a situation with my wife maybe like 3-4 years ago. We ran into some gnarly dudes on a road trip, and I think they were like trying to kidnap them, my wife and my kid.
Jesus.
It was like one of those like real gnarly.
Where were you?
Just between San Francisco and LA on the 5. We got out to go use a restroom at like one of the stops, and my wife was like, this dude's creeping me out. My wife's really pretty. And I was like, oh, he's whatever. Don't worry. He was just like glasses on a cell phone talking, you know? She's like, no, I'm getting a bad vibe. And I was like, all right, well, you know, there's at those exits, there's like tons of gas stations. So we just left and went to another one to use the restroom.
They were like following you in a car?
Well, so that was it, right?
Yeah.
And then we went to another gas station, not very far. I could see the gas station we left because there's many, like, I don't know if you know these exits, but there'll be nothing.
Yeah.
But like 5 gas stations and 5 fast food places.
Yeah.
So I left, but like in the back of my head, I was like, because my dad raised me. My dad grew up kind of sketchy, in a sketchy time with sketchy people. And so he always raised me from a young age to like watch out for tactical people. Like, hey, can you open that for me? And then hit you in the ear with an ice pick. Like he raised me to watch out for that.
Yeah.
To watch out for skullduggery, basically.
Yeah.
And so in the back of my head, I'm like, all right, well, so we have to go use the bathroom still. You know, it's been a long drive. So I like go in there and I watch that car from the gas station. I can see it. And I'm like, we're good right now. I run in there, do my business, and my wife and my kid are still in the bathroom. I run out, and I'm watching the car, and they back out, and they follow us to this gas station. And so as I see this happening, I go in back into the gas station to the bathroom, and I go, Kat, these guys are coming over here now. Stay behind me, whatever happens. And so, you know, I don't go anywhere without a pocket knife.
Yeah.
So I had a pocket knife, and I just opened it. And like as the guys came in, I didn't get a good look at them before, but when they come in, I see exactly who they are. It's probably like a dude from a cartel or some super gnarly gang and like his henchmen, and they look tweaked out or whatever, but they're gnarly looking dudes. And I just put my wife and my kid between me and the guys, and we walk out, and there's only one clerk, and this gas station don't have no one in it.
Right.
Everyone's at the one closer to the freeway.
Yeah.
And I just looked at this dude with a look that's like, if you're willing to die for this, you might be able to get them. And I had my plan. I was just like, I know exactly what I'm going to do right now.
Yeah.
And I knew what I was going to do. And the guy took one look at me and was like, there's easier food out there for me. And we just passed, and that was it.
That's fucking wild.
But I mean, the key to most of that stuff is just knowing what type of situation you're in when you're in it.
Totally.
I get in those situations more often than I don't.
Why do you think that is?
Couple reasons. And I can't speculate, but I'll say I've been in those situations more often than I care to. Not always with the wife and kid, but I do have another one with the wife and kid on around the same time on another freeway. Not the same level of intent, more like joyriding drunk, but like also sketchy dudes. They ran up both sides of my car while I was filling up my gas station on the other freeway, not the 5, but the 101 between SF and LA. That one I saw, my wife was asleep. But I don't know.
I mean, what happened? They came up on your car? Like
I was just filling up my gas tank at a gas station. Same thing, just off the freeway. Only one gas station this time.
Yeah.
Like King City, you know, between like after Santa Cruz, before San Francisco, before San Jose. These dudes just came over the hill from the freeway area, like Camaro, kind of rowdy, loud music. Pulling the gas station. I'm like, these dudes aren't pulling in the gas station right here to mess with me, are they? Sure enough, they pull up right behind me. I'm like, boop, boop, put my stuff away. Like hop in my car. As soon as I hop in my car, turn my car over, they're coming up both sides of my car to my doors. And I just hit it.
Yeah.
Out of the truck. I just was out.
Fuck, man.
But like same thing. I mean, they didn't see my wife, they didn't see my kid, but they were just out to jack somebody.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe it's karma. I have no idea, but I've had other stuff.
Yeah. Well,
It's cat and mouse out there, man. I'm living on the edge, whether or not you realize it.
Yeah. Fuck, man. I mean, fortunately, I've never had any of that experience with my family, right?
Keep an eye out.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I've had a couple experiences in New York City on the street, right? Where it was like someone's on drugs or something's happening, and I'm like, look, you just stay behind me, right? And it's that exchange of a look that ultimately passes on it, right? Which, like, before I started training jiu-jitsu, which wasn't that long ago, I didn't have that base confidence level, right? I'd been in some fights and stuff like that, but nothing, you know, I avoided that stuff, right? Jiu-jitsu gives you something that, at least in my experience, that, I don't know, it's just a comfort level with fucking close hand-to-hand combat, right?
Yeah.
And because you're drilling so much, right? And you're sparring and you're going and you're tapping people, you're getting tapped, like, you know, you just get comfortable, right? With that type of scenario, right? And I remember when I did this tactical training, just like off on a tangent, when they do the introduction, these guys are like real serious, right? You train, you don't like shake hands, you don't like talk or anything. You literally just train on striking target points that shut down CPUs, right? And at the intro that this guy Tim and his team gave, people were like fucking passing out at the thought of violence. Literally, like grown men were like, boom, just gone, right? And I was like, oh, that's weird. Like, how's that happening? And I realized, like, martial arts, whatever it is, just the constant training of some form of combat, it readies you for other levels of training, right?
Yeah.
And I wanted to go back to something because you mentioned like your dad would have a gun out. I mean, like, what, dude, like, what, I mean, in what context?
He likes to get drunk and clean his gun. And like, he always slept with a gun under his pillow. His dad always carried a gun in his wife's purse, like gun mole style. They're just from a different time.
Yeah.
They grew up, and they were from Milwaukee, and my grandpa was like a union delegate.
Got it.
And I mean, you just got to have a certain level of checked outness to do that level of violence. Right. And some of that is genetic, and some of that is ancestral.
Yeah.
And for whatever, my people are from they weren't farmers.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a different background.
Yeah. I think everyone has that though. I think you're right. It is, it's like, it's in the human system to be able to go to that place, right? It's the discomfort that people have. Like I don't know. I mean, modern society it frowns upon all that stuff, which it should, right? For sure. Any form of violence, I think is a low level of consciousness, right? I think the training of it can elevate your consciousness, right?
Yeah.
But
anyone can do violence.
For sure.
Like
for sure.
It's mindless, literally.
Yeah.
Most of it is.
Right.
Like if you see like killing fields or something like that, it's mechanical.
Right.
It's not a resolution. It's like the ending of energy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's interesting. Man, you got to fucking stay hard, David Goggins style. Right. Stay hard out there.
It's more of a mindset than it is like a physical attribute.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, it's a checked outness.
Yeah, no, for sure. Look, I can relate to it without having necessarily been in those situations. I mean, I was in situations when I was younger. I think I was too young to really understand what was going on, but in situations where like guns were pulled and shit got crazy, right? And my response was always like, I need to stay calm and eliminate myself from this situation, right? Like this is going to end fucking poorly for somebody, right? And it usually does, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, that's the weird thing. Our culture is really like pro-gun, I should say. And like, I find it fascinating because most people with firearms, most of them, they do not have a trained fight or flight. They do not have a trained nervous system.
Right.
They don't even have fucking cardio.
Yeah.
Do you know what happens if you pull a firearm out with intent to use it?
Yeah.
Your blood pressure spikes.
Right.
Your heart starts going off the roof. You know, your hands start shaking. You start having like dreamlike sequences where you can't pull it out fast enough and use it quick enough.
Yeah.
And then you don't even, breathe and aim.
Right.
You pull, you don't squeeze.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, it's a plant your foot, like, make sure you know what you're doing because this is like, it's going, once you send this out, there's no return on it.
Right. Yeah.
You know?
For sure.
Most people don't even know to watch your background.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And it's like, it's just sketchy. I mean, to think how many people have firearms, massive, powerful firearms, and they have no idea how to use them.
Totally. Look,
I have no idea.
Are you against firearms or are you like, is it more of like a controlled thing where like people should be required to get training?
I think training. I mean, at the very least, I mean, I think it should be illegal to have a firearm and not have a safe to lock it in.
For sure.
It's not,
Yeah.
I think it should be illegal.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
people are like,
sorry, go ahead.
Oh, people buy $1,000 Glock and then they're like, I got to pay another $1,000 for a safe. You're like, yes, fool.
Yeah.
And you're going to pay $50,000 in ammunition.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, whatever, to learn how to shoot. It's like, I just look at it like I have angle grinder, and I have a skill saw,
Right.
and I have a shovel, and it's like, this is a tool.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
I think, you can do any level of violence like with anything.
Yeah.
Like a bat, like a shoe,
For sure.
whatever. I mean, it's like if you want to put in the legwork,
Yeah.
But I just think people, the education level is not there with firearms for people.
Definitely. I mean, I definitely agree with that. I will say one of the first things I did when I moved out of the city was get firearms. Right. And I've used them. I've trained it. Safe was number one. Right. Like I've got kids in the house, like everything has to be locked away. Right. Ammunition locked separately, all that stuff. But there was something innate in me of like, I need to acquire fire. I have a house. And I have a young family here. I need to, from a home invasion scenario, right? For me, I was like, I'm just comfortable having it, right? And I think it's people's right, but I agree with you. Like the level of training I wouldn't use a firearm that I'm not trained on, right? And you have to go take reps, just like anything else, right? Just like boxing, just like jujitsu, just like Muay Thai, just like Kung Fu, whatever it is, right? Yeah. You've got to get those reps in, right? Because it even just like
expensive too.
It is for sure. Well, it's at the end of the day, it's a responsibility, right? It's just like driving a car. There's a responsibility component to it, right? Don't fucking text and drive, right? Don't do these things that create unsafe scenarios, right?
Exactly.
Don't drink and drive. Yeah. It's man, I've seen one of the few nuggets of information I've been catching is like gun sales going through the roof. And I'm like, holy shit, dude. This is like, it's not going to end well if we don't institute some sort of training. I understand the component of Texas style, like, if somebody's robbing a store, if you're robbing a store in Texas, you're probably getting shot at by civilians, right? Like that's the likelihood. I understand that concept, but I'm also a believer that like there has to be some sort of training instruction around it. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. I think, guns are lazy, man.
Yeah. They can be, right? I mean, look, I don't know where I stand philosophically on the technology, right? Because they're just like anything else, they're a tool, right?
Yeah. I mean, they're just lazy. They're for lazy people.
Yeah.
You could use a bat to do what a gun does.
Sure. I guess in the scenario of like someone else, hang on one second. I just want to shut this door because I think I hear the kids coming back. 1 second. All right, we're back. Where were we? Guns. No, I think it's like look, there are scenarios where that a firearm is appropriate, right? Like in a home invasion scenario, if somebody else has a gun, if you're combating, there's strategies around closing the distance on a room, right? Your best option is actually to just charge the person, right? Regardless of if they have a firearm or not, right? That is your best option unless you have a firearm and you can act quicker. But there's like, I don't know. It's weird to go down that rabbit hole. Right.
Yeah. I mean, it's just what I tell my son is, cause he asked me about him and I'm like, it's an imperfect answer to like a very complex problem.
Totally.
I mean, just the wherewithal, the amount of like awareness and present, like how present you need to be to operate that in the moment you need to operate it. I mean, spend all your time working on that.
For sure.
You don't spend any time living.
For sure.
I mean, you're better off just locking the door and, if you're really worried about it, like.
Get a dog. Right.
Get a dog.
Yeah.
It's a weird one. I mean, I just hope I never have to get to that level, but,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I just look at it as a tool, right? Just like the same way you were saying it, I look at it as a tool and there's a responsibility to use that tool. Like you wouldn't go out swinging an axe without understanding that you got to spread your feet, right? Like otherwise you're going to come back toeless, right? Most likely.
Yeah, totally. It's a weird thing. I just think it's Americans invented the revolver, to deal with the Comanches.
Yeah.
Because the technology they had was way more advanced until they brought the repeating revolver. And it's one of those things where it's like, It's the American answer. It's like, this is easy. It's a button.
Right.
No problem. No more Comanches. And it's like, well, that was good then because those people were in this fight or flight all the time.
Right.
You know, you didn't hear about accidental gun deaths back then.
Right.
You know? But bullets were expensive.
Right.
You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? Like that shit was precious. Now all that shit's cheap and it's everywhere and no one knows how to use it. And it's not, there's way more of it now that doesn't need to be used for actual self-defense.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like I'd be fascinated to know the number of situations, and there's probably no way to do this, like that could have been resolved without guns.
I mean, probably almost all of them. Right.
I mean, unless you're in like a firefight.
But even, I mean, if you go back to the source, though, I think it's a good perspective to look at it, because if you go back to the source, like, why are we in a firefight? Because they said this and we believe that. Right.
Yeah.
I mean,
It's weird.
Well, I think at some point, I think humans can elevate to a level of consciousness where that will not be required.
I hope so.
Right. And like, I mix between that philosophy of like, just don't have them because you don't need them. Right. Which is just like, violence is never the answer. And then I also understand the practicality of violence in scenarios. Right.
You definitely need them now. I mean, there's 300 million guns in America, or 350. It's like,
Yeah.
or I forget what the number is.
It's some
There's a
crazy
ridiculous
number.
amount of guns.
Yeah.
There's a number of guns that there are people.
Yeah.
You need a gun.
Yeah.
You just because it's mutually assured destruction. I have 2 guns.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's like not like I enjoy having them,
Yeah.
but I have them. Like
When I got them,
situations where
oh, sorry.
I'm sorry.
No,
what would you say?
sorry. Go ahead. That lag was catching us for a minute.
I bought my first one like 5 years ago when my studio got broken into, and I caught the guy breaking into it, and it was a kid.
Yeah.
And I had it was this type of situation where it was an industrial building. There was no light switch, and it was clamoring around in the dark. It was like on a Super Bowl Sunday. And I rolled up to the building, and there was this really gnarly, like scarred faced, like ex-con looking guy in front of my building. And it's like I pulled up in my truck to get some work done, and I could see him, and I was like, something's not right. And instead of like going away from him, I went towards him. And I was like, what's up, man? What are you doing in front of my building? Because he was just lurking. And he was like, And he had a scar on his face. His hands were like 2 of my hands. He was just huge, gnarly dude. And I was next to a flower shop, and he was like, I'm delivering flowers. He's like, I just want to know if I could park my truck here. I was like, where's your fucking truck? And he was like, And I was like, well, what does the sign say? And he was like, And I was like, it says you can't park here from 7 to 9, but you're cool. So go get your truck. Where's your truck? And he was like, And I was like, and I scared him just by being like up in his face, you know? And I opened my door, and luckily he had walked off scared.
Wow.
And left the dude in there because he was spotting. Because if not, he would have like hit me in the back of the head and who knows what. But same thing, like I just knew what it was, but I didn't know what it was.
Right.
But I could smell it.
Yeah.
And this is before I was even doing any Muay Thai or anything. I was still like pretty out of shape, but I just like, I could just see what it was.
Yeah.
But I didn't know what it was. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah. You never truly know. Like even when you know, it's like you're just more convinced that you understand it than you can ever possibly be. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
But so you were, this was one thing I wanted to ask you, because you mentioned you started doing Kung Fu when you were a kid. One of the connection points that we originally had was around Muay Thai, because we found out we both were going to the same gym in San Francisco.
Yeah.
And, I just wanted to, I don't want to take the heaviness off that conversation around violence and guns, but I was curious about your martial arts journey and like where it started for you. Cause you've been, in my experience, like you've been a practitioner for a while. You've got the Fairtex in the background. I'm jealous for sure. The Fairtex in the background. That's a beautiful bag.
It's a cool bag.
Yeah. Did you stuff that thing yourself?
No, man, I got it from my buddy. He got it from one of Noom's guys who set up the gym, and stuffed really well.
Yeah.
It's great for leg kicks.
Okay.
It's great for clinch and knee. It's like over 100 pounds. Like you kick the bottom, it's like it'll totally condition your shins.
That's amazing. Yeah, I was looking at getting one out here, and then I was like, fuck, dude, where am I going to get? I mean, number one, my ceilings aren't high enough in my garage, but I was just thinking about the complexity of stuffing it, and I got kettlebells instead.
Oh, it's easy.
Yeah?
I've stuffed one.
Yeah?
My wife made one and I stuffed it, but I broke the straps on it.
Oh, did you guys stuff it with like clothing shred? That's what I've seen is like just like clothing shreds. Did
I
you put
cut
any
up a bunch
sand?
of t-shirts and then you just fill a sandbag and put it in the middle at the bottom. And then you just put the shirts around, get a 2x4 that's not too long and shove them down.
Okay.
A lot of people like to do this, like, you got to let it like hang for weeks. Fuck that. Just, you get a 2x4, shove it down around the thing, put another one in, shove it down around the thing. And like, it's pretty self-explanatory.
Okay.
You just need a lot of clothing.
Got it.
Like a lot.
Okay.
Like you need to go buy like, you know, pounds and pounds of t-shirts.
Like 10 pounds or something, or like 20?
No, like 80.
80. Holy
50,
shit.
50 pounds.
Okay.
You know? Maybe I'm wrong. Dude, I had like 2 Tupperwares full of clothing that my friend was like, I'm getting rid of this. Does Kat want to upcycle any of this? Because she makes stuff out of clothing. And she took what she wanted and the rest we just chopped up. And it was a lot of clothing. It was like a Tupperware and a half full of clothing.
Wow.
Cut into little pieces.
Damn.
Yeah, but it's amazing. Stuffing your own bag is cool. Like it's like I don't explain it. Like it made me feel like I made my own lightsaber or something.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it had a weird weight to it, and I put extra weight in it, and it was a weird size, but it had weighed a lot, so it was really cool for a clinch.
Yeah. Okay.
Because it was like a 175-pound dude leaning on me, but in a bag that was like rated for like 120 or something.
Oh, wow. Okay. You pushed it to
So
the
it was
limit.
like it was really it's a specialized tool.
Right.
You know.
Right.
That's what I learned from art and all this stuff. Is like you start making tools that don't exist. Not everything's over the counter.
Right.
You know what I mean?
I do. I definitely do. I'm in that phase myself on like, let's just make it for the experience of making it.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, totally.
Especially with the kids. Right.
Yeah.
Because for them, it's magic.
That's like the punk rock ethos.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like good punk. That's what I always tell my kid. Good punk versus bad punk. Bad punk's like not fun. Good punk's like, yo, I made this weird thing that we can all just mess with.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But I started martial arts when I was a little kid, and I was like goofy and didn't have any coordination, maybe in Wisconsin. And then around 11 in Orange County, I started taking karate, like United Studios of Self-Defense, like just Kempo, like Ed Parker Kempo.
Mm-hmm.
And I did that, and I was goofy in that and awkward and undisciplined for a long time. And then around like 13, 14, I really started to develop like, I developed early. I got like muscle tone and like quickness and agility. And I started to get real good. And I was like messing up some of the adults, like young guys, like construction worker guys that were like, fuck this kid. You know what I mean? And I got pretty high. I think I got the green belt, and I won a tournament that I went in. But again, it was just the structure wasn't there for me to be successful.
Yeah.
Like
in that school?
Didn't really care.
Or
No, they were fine. No, my family didn't care. Like it was a pay to play kind of thing. You know, like they cared enough, but it wasn't like, you know, it was like whatever. But for me, I got really good with my body. I could jump really high. I could run really fast. I could strike really hard. I could slip punches. And I was like, wow, like I can do some magic with my body. And then I started to not meditate, but I could control my breathing. I could hold my breath for like 3 or 4 minutes because it was all diaphragm related. And then I stopped. Like I stopped doing it like just abruptly, like around like 16. And then I ended up doing it again from a Kung Fu school, like around 18. And then left that one, went to another one, and then had this huge break from like probably 19 to 35. I didn't do any martial arts.
Oh, wow.
And then I picked up Muay Thai. And I was so happy.
Yeah.
And I didn't know why. And my wife told me that she had heard some study about people that as adults, if they do the thing that they really enjoyed when they were a kid, like it'll give them this maximal amount of joy.
Mm-hmm.
And then, you know, just Muay Thai is so like the duct tape of fighting.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like stand up.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, yo, you're Western boxing now. You know, you can like just see what's happening. You could square up or you could turn sideways. And
Totally.
I haven't done that much jujitsu, but I'm interested in it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
I feel like I'm agile enough and quick enough that I probably have a decent single leg. You know what I mean?
For sure.
Like,
Yeah. I think you would pick it up. I mean, just based on the amount of time. I didn't know that you had trained like that much as a kid, but even I mean, Muay Thai is like just a fucking incredible sport. It's such a beautiful sport, right? The flow of it is incredible. And Jang Sanan in San Francisco is like, I don't know. I literally walked into that place randomly.
Really?
I walked into it randomly. I had no idea who any of those guys were. I was just, I had no clue. I was just like, I was looking for that, right? I was looking for some experience, and his commitment to the new students, where like he would start a class and then he would pull, and sometimes it was just me, right? He would pull all the new people away. Like he really loves teaching people the art of Muay Thai. And I like his, he was like, too stiff, too stiff, too stiff. He'd come up and like hit me. It's too stiff, right? And for months, but I really enjoy that sport, right? And having trained there, I've trained at Henzo Gracie in New York City and at 5 Points in New York City, which are all like epic gyms, right? And I really love Jang Sanong's style. Like he's such an incredible teacher.
It's so simple too, like complex and simple, but like no fancy, no funny stuff, just what worked.
Totally.
But yeah, I got lucky. Like I had opened up my hips as a kid, so like, you know, people are like I'll be messing around with someone, and they'll be like, that, you know, I got a guy out here, he does Muay Thai. He's like, yeah, come through, we'll get your kicks up there. I'm like, okay. You know what I mean? Like my kicks have been up there since I was 14.
Right. Yeah.
Like I could throw like a high kick, you know, at my head without warming up.
Wow.
You know.
Okay. So your hips were open.
I always can.
Sorry, your hips were opened from karate?
As a kid from karate.
Yeah.
So like now when it took me a minute to get back into it. But when I did, it took me about a year and a half. But when I did, like I got my body back from being like I don't explain it. Like I got younger. My body got younger.
I know exactly what you mean. When I started, dude, my hips did not open up as a kid, right? I had stiffened up a lot, right? Traveling and fucking not exercising and stuff like that. And even the exercise I was doing was like, it was building strength. It was helping, but it definitely did not help my connection with my hips, right? And balance. And the first few months at El Nino was fucking tough. Like I remember I would come home and my legs would be so, it felt like somebody hit me with bats in my hips for like 2-3 days afterwards. And then finally I remember I was stretching after every class just to like,
that's smart.
I had to, if I didn't, it was so fucking painful that I would talk myself out of going to class 2 days later, right? Because I'm like, dude, I just don't want to deal with that today. And they just opened up, like they literally popped at one point. Like one day after training, it was like, and I was like, whoa, let me test this. And I just sat there for like an hour kicking the bag and slowly going faster and stronger and faster and stronger. I mean, dude, I didn't even know how to get up on my heels. Like it was, and I did sports throughout my whole life. I've always been athletic.
It's a different thing.
Completely different thing. Right. And like,
it's not Western.
No. And you have to, it's just like meditation. You have to relax into it. Right. Like slow is steady is strong. Right. Like you get in that flow and you don't use force. Right. You can't use force. As soon as I was trying to just force everything. Right. So you're like kicking
that's
hard.
Western.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, for sure. I mean, if you look at our society, that's what exists today. Right. It's just jam it down your fucking throat force. Right.
Yeah.
And I think there's like what I'm finding is like the flow in everything. Right. Where like I think I posted on Instagram the other day. I've been doing timed runs because I've been tracking myself. I'm trying to get better. I'm trying to beat myself, right? I'm going Goggins style, trying to constantly beat myself on time, on distance, on all these different things. And I was like, let me just train without a fucking heart rate monitor and without the time. Let me just go run, just to run, right? And I took a route that it's probably about 10 miles, right? Maybe 9.5, maybe 10.5. I don't know. Fucking best run I've ever had. It was so quiet. Like I put on a playlist. I didn't pull out my phone once. I still wanted to listen to music. Just removing the one element of time and the tracking made it it felt like the shortest run I've ever done. And I wasn't sore the next day. It was weird. I mean, I'm going to go bang that same run today after this, right?
Right.
The music like flowed with the feeling in my body, right? Like there were songs that were like, I'm a fucking warrior, right? Like going crazy. And I'm chugging. And then as I got through, I don't know, 3/4, 2/3, 3/4, there were some songs that are like, it's fucking pain, right? Like, and I was just letting it, I don't know, man. It was such a rich experience to do that. And I'm like, okay, where else can I apply that to in my life? Right. Not just physical training, but
Yeah.
it's in like martial arts. I feel like you don't, unless you're going for competition, right? You're not tracking time. You're just training. You're there to that experience. Right.
Yeah.
And
That you get that flow state. It's hard to get to, but it's about your joy for the thing.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, as opposed to checking into your ground downness or the like watching the clock or like it's weird, man. It's weird. It's like how do you be your best self without like measuring all the time?
Yeah, you just stop fucking measuring. Like that's where I mean, I know I'm in that place. I know that question that you're talking about.
Yeah.
Because it was just looping in my head nonstop, like how can I be better? How can I be great? How can I make, it was driving back to the thing with growing up without my dad really around is like, I was looking to be great for so that someone would pay attention, right? Instead of just settling in and enjoying right now. And I'm thankful that I'm in that space right now where I'm like, let me experience this, right? That's what these conversations are about. Let me just experience everything that I'm doing, right? In that moment, the reading, the meditation, the running, the conversating, even the stuff that I'm finding I had resistance to, like some other work related stuff. I'm like, let me just does the flow actually stop? No, it never does.
Yeah, even if you're itemizing your receipts,
right?
You have to do it like in a loving way.
Totally.
You have to be like talking yourself up.
Yeah.
And you have to be excited at your, like, look how far I've come.
Right.
Like I'm in January. I'm in July. You know what I mean? But whatever. It's like, I looked at a box of receipts I got to do today and I was like, normally I my old self, I'd be like, oh my God, skeletons in the closet. Mm-hmm. But I looked at it today and I was like, oh yeah, that's so easy.
Right.
I'm going to get to that real soon.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like kind of a thing. And it's how you talk to yourself, a lot of it.
For sure.
And like what it's like the bad dad, like bad little league dad. But like American culture trains us all to talk to ourselves that way.
Totally.
And it's like sometimes it's effective to build grit, but then sometimes it's counterproductive because it just really wears on your stamina.
Yeah.
And your perseverance.
Yeah.
Even if you didn't make that many gains, it's like you can't measure every day gains. You have to measure them like over a year and a half. Mm-hmm. My journey in Muay Thai was like 5.5 years or something. 5 years. It was a long time. My son was like 6 months old, and it probably ended when he was about 6. So 5.5 years. And towards the end, I tapered off because it became a situation of like gym politics and like just new faces and like it's like dick measuring, and I was like, I don't give a shit.
Right.
You know what I mean? I was like, I'm not here to spar to like beat the best dude in the gym.
Right.
Like, I'm on gym wars. Like, fuck.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like I want the health and I want the technical like knowledge. I want to be able to fight like someone straight out of like the jungle. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Like for me, for the beauty of it and like for my safety and my family's safety, but like I don't need to like get tuned up by like guys that are starting, they're got to fight next week because that's what they want.
Right.
So like, but it was great, and now I struggled to keep some of those things, but there's a beautiful, beautiful like art, and all martial arts I think just feeds the soul. I think we're so animal. Humans are so animal that if you're not training some kind of thing every day, whether it's biking or running or swimming or tennis or boxing, like you're losing a huge part of your like triangle.
Totally.
The physical, mental, spiritual, like you're just not, it's not getting fed, and all of your actions, decisions are going to be very colored by the fact that like you're not a very fit animal. You're a hurt animal.
Yeah.
And so You're going to weigh heavy on the physical, or the spiritual, the mental, you're going to be a lot in your head. The working out your body frees. It's like your body will imprison your mind until you use your mind to put your body at ease.
Totally.
Because the body has its own mind. And you'll see that when you go try to do a high kick and you can't. Your body's like, we can't do that. You're like, I just saw someone do it. It's not the same.
Right.
So that's the thing I like most about working out. I want to get into running, and I just don't have that, like what they call the mise en place, but like the right headphones, like the right shoes. Like I got a perfect place to run. Like I live on the lakefront, so it's like there's a ton of runners out there. It's actually, I want to make a zine of all the runners out here because they run so awkwardly, and it's like mean, but it's fun.
Yeah. Like
I want to get a camera and take pictures of. Yeah, they're like so lurchy and like so like zombie. Like I'm like, how did you come up with this running style? Huh. it's like amazing. I want to do a still book. Anyway,
dude, you should do that.
I'm cruel. I love that idea. I don't want to get caught taking pictures of people, but it's hilarious.
It's just observation, man.
My buddy does that in San Francisco. He's a street photographer, and he takes pictures of all the bike messengers and the people. And he's like, shout out to D-Rock on Instagram. He's hilarious. But he'll like, especially when the city was bumping, like he'll have a picture of a woman like in the same outfit or changed outfits like over weeks or months or years. And like he'll do like a time lapse of her. It's crazy.
Wow.
Or a guy or a biker. Like he'll have like the same photo of the same biker in the same position on a different day wearing different clothes on a different bike. But it's really trippy. It's like opening some new ground with like observed reality. It's a trip. But Instagram, he's on Instagram.
Okay. D-Rock.
D-Rock.
Cool. I'll check him out for sure. That's like, I feel like bike messengers are like a different breed in a lot of ways.
Yeah,
like it's the culture of that is just like incredible.
Yeah. Well, that begs to ask the question of like, are you your career? So many people, they define themselves by their like analog. I am a stockbroker. I am a car salesman. I am a bartender. It's like, and then, whatever that fill in the blank, whatever those people, it's a very generic expression of like the individual, but
totally
our society is like definitely for that. But I like the cutting across and like doing a lot of everything,
Yeah. Well, I think that's the human potential aspect, right? I agree with you. I've observed that like humans are just so tribal, right? And that need to identify is just tribal at its core, right?
Yeah.
And as you move through levels of consciousness, you can transcend that if you choose to, right? And you should if you have the desire to, right? And I think most people probably do. And it's uncomfortable, right? When you start questioning, like, am I this? Am I just this? Yeah. Like even like I am an artist, like even I am a creative person. It's like these things that when you start peeling back the layers around how you define yourself, right? Instead of just recognizing that there's consciousness in every thing in the universe, right? We're one of them. And like the human experience is a beautiful experience. It can be, there's many sides to it, right?
There's that like saying that I think I was big on before I moved, but it was like, oh, what is it? It's something like, I'm a human being having a spiritual experience, or like, I'm a spiritual being having a human experience. They kind of like nest in each other and go back and forth.
Yeah.
But, definitely, it's really interesting how places like, do you find Hawaii to be very spiritually awake, like for you?
That's a great question because there's like I think it's like the people or the physical place. Like
I'll take any. I mean, I know they all slot in differently, so I'm interested.
Yeah, we've had less exposure to people, obviously because of COVID, right? And things are shut down. I mean, they're definitely the aloha culture is alive and real here, right? Yeah. And it's a beautiful philosophy, right? And there's I've had some experiences here. Like I was running around trying to get a generator because there was this hurricane coming a couple of weeks. You texted me, right?
Oh yeah.
And
I texted you.
I was like, I hadn't been watching the news, so I didn't know. And one of my neighbors was like, "You guys ready for the hurricane?" And I was like, "What? Huh?" And so I grabbed the boy and we went on a hunt for a generator. Cause I'm like, look, 3 kids. I just bought a bunch of food. Like I need to protect this house. Right. And, it was fucking sold out everywhere. There was like we went to every place you could possibly go. And I was like, man, I was with my son and he's like, let's just
You go to Don Quixote's?
What? No.
You got to go to Don Quixote's. They got everything.
Okay. Is that like a real place here?
Oh my God. Yeah.
Okay. I haven't heard of
Don
it.
Quixote's, and it's a superstore.
Okay.
They got groceries. They got everything.
Really?
My wife and my kid love it. Yeah.
Okay.
It's amazing.
It's on Oahu?
Yeah.
Okay. I got to check it
There's
out.
like 2 of them or something.
Okay.
There's one right in downtown.
Okay.
And then I think the other one is, I can't remember where the other one is. There's 2 of them though. I'm pretty sure there's 2.
I'll Google it. I got to see this place.
Yeah. That's the jump off, Don Quixote.
Okay. I didn't go there, but I'd like been to like 10 places. I'd called like 12 more and everybody's like, just sold our last one. And my son's like, let's just go home. And I was like, there's always another fucking shot, man. And I started Googling industrial places, right? And I found an industrial construction supply place. And I called him like, do you have generators? She's like, I've got 2. I'm like, hold one. I'll be there in 10 minutes. The lady was fucking beautiful, man. She understood that I was in need of that at this moment. She gave me a discount when there was a run on it.
Yeah.
She just gave me like a 15 or 20% discount on it. It was like, good luck. I hope you guys stay safe. Like really beautiful things. Like we've had a lot of interactions like that. So on the human level, for sure, I think it is. And I've experienced a bunch of stuff here, being here independently, just on like solo trips, right? Just like feeling nature's energy. And I think Hawaii is a spiritual place, right? Like it's got that connection. It's interesting. I've talked to some people who, like a couple of people I know from New York, that were like, oh, Hawaii's got this like dark energy. And I'm like, dude, what the fuck were you doing there? like what happened there where you experienced that? Right.
Yeah. Waikiki.
Yeah. Yeah.
Waikiki's pretty dark, man. My wife used to live there for 5 years, and she lived in one of those high rises.
Yeah.
And she was like, man, you would hear a lot of screams and a lot of people, like a lot of gnarly stuff happens in Waikiki.
Waikiki reminds me of like South Beach. Like it's just this like, or Vegas. Yeah. It's just this like shit show of tourism that I don't think is the best thing for the island. I mean, they're going to have to experience coming out of COVID because the hotels are just shut down. Like we went over there to watch the sunset and it's a fucking ghost town, right?
That's crazy.
You see like all the brands and all the big, like Louis Vuitton and Tesla and all this shit. And it's just dark, right? Wow. But people are still out surfing, right? The ocean still makes waves, right? Yeah. The sun still sets on that side of the island and people are out and having a good time. I think that the lifestyle here for sure is like, it's about kind of cultivating that. It's like relaxing into the moment. Right. And obviously, we live close to the beach, which is amazing. It's, to look out I've seen more sunrises, in the last 5 months than I've seen in 35 years, right? 36 years, whatever,
that's awesome.
It's beautiful and it's a great thing to watch. And I think just that connection point with nature brings out that experience in you, right? That kind of spiritual experience, that whatever, that connection with the universe, right? The stars, man, we've seen some beautiful moons. There's like a planet that we've been seeing that's like flashing red off the coast that I need to get a telescope. My son's birthday's coming up, so I'm going to try to find a telescope for him. But, it's an incredible place. I think there's also, just like anywhere, right? There's the balance, right? And there's like the local Hawaiians are fighting to preserve natural resources, right? Which is important for sure. And I think there's this, they're going through the people here are going through that struggle right now, right? Of like, how much commercialization is good, right? Is any of it good? right? I mean, at one point, I think Waikiki was a beautiful place, right? I mean, the waves out there are beautiful. You know, you can't tell now because it's been developed. Like,
yeah. No, I mean, it's pretty brutal. Yeah, Hawaii is a trip. It's like so high up. You're so close to the sky and the stars. Yeah. I would imagine it's just like full of like spiritual high ones. I feel like the Bay Area was like that with the redwoods and the North Bay and just the city. Like I remember my son, like he was like 3.5 or something. I mean, he'd already been talking. It was like one of the first profound things he said was like, we were driving through the city. He's like, I am having a view. I'm like, I mean, even if you're in the flatlands of San Francisco, you're seeing something.
right.
You know, it's like even good or bad, whatever you want to say about it, but it's like, it's a feast for the eyes, for the senses, you know?
Yeah.
And Hawaii, I imagine, is really similar. Yeah, that's really cool, man.
Yeah. It's nice to be away from the continental 48 right now, right? To the extent, I mean, my family needed it after being in Manhattan for a long time, right?
Manhattan's a lot.
It's a lot.
Especially where you guys were. It was like, I mean, all Manhattan's a lot, but you guys were like in the a lot area.
Yeah, we were in the a lot area. Yeah, we needed to change it.
And stuff.
Yeah, we needed to change that. I mean, I can't even. It's hard for me to recognize like what's being talked about, what's happening there right now, because
what's even happening?
I mean, just look, I don't know what's real, right? My friends are being pretty safe and like staying home, right? Still. Right, they're being cautious, and like my team is like, we don't have an office anymore, so I don't have anybody that's like out in the mix of stuff. But from what I'm hearing, it's just, I mean, like crime is going up. Like the police are totally detached. Like homeless populations are taking over. Like gangs are starting to like take over corners. Right. I mean, in a city as big as Manhattan, that's always an element, right? It's always an element. In New York, it's always an element, right? We lived like catty corner to the projects, and there would be violence and shootings and stuff like that. Like, it's just a part of that many people in a dense area. But I think it's kind of, it hit a tipping point, and New York is at a tipping point. A lot of people have left, like from the kids' old school. I would say easily over 50% of the families have moved out.
No way.
Easily. Yeah. Maybe close to like 80. Yeah. So I think, any friends I've had that were like lifelong New Yorkers are out of the city. Right.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I've only been back to San Francisco a couple times since this, twice.
Yeah.
Actually, once before and then once during. So yeah, maybe not only once. And I didn't believe that they could shut down San Francisco the way they did. Like certain things, like there's this bar on Mission Street called the Beauty Bar. And like that place, it was like a running joke that it would be open the day hell froze over. Like it would be open during the apocalypse. Because the type of person, there's a lot of young people that would go there, but the mainstays were like, it was like some Charlie Bukowski, like, barfly, dark bar stuff.
Yeah.
I had worked there once. I mean, it was, yeah. And to see that place shuttered, I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
Oh. And I mean, I was there. I was packing up a studio I had and moving it out here, and I was only there for a couple of days, but I didn't do too much going around. But when I was off packing up the studio, like at night, I biked around the Mission and I biked around Chinatown and downtown. There was no one out.
Wow.
And the people that were out were trying to size me up. Like, are you food?
Wow.
Like a different look. And I was like, even for, that's untoward for SF.
For sure.
I was like, that's a trip. So I don't know what's going on there now. I got to touch up base with my people, but yeah, it's like where I live, you wouldn't know anything was going on.
Right.
Like it's a lot of like Republicans, a lot of Trumpers. Mm-hmm. So like, they'll wear masks in the stores to be polite.
Right.
But like no one's wearing masks outside.
Yeah.
Like everyone's out on the waterfront, everyone's biking and running and like enjoying that summer because it's short.
Right.
And yeah, it's like, it's unaffecting not affecting this area in that way. So the dense city centers are really getting wrecked.
For sure.
And it's a bummer because I feel like those are like the high points of culture.
Yeah, I think they could be, for sure.
Or were.
Yeah, they were. Yeah.
You know, I think of San Francisco and Manhattan as like the intelligentsia.
Yeah.
You know, like definitely setting like a pace for like that's like the crown jewel of America. You know?
Right.
Los Angeles too, obviously.
Right.
You know, but just like, this is what's happening. Like, this is hot. This is interesting. Like you feel the vibe. Like, young people want to be there, you know? And it's sad that like this thing has decimated that. Like, it's not good.
Yeah.
I don't like it. I wanted to see it come back because it was so special.
Yeah. I have mixed feelings about it too. Cause I love New York City. Right. I mean, I feel like I kind of became a man there. Right.
Mm-hmm.
However, I've moved on from that chapter in my life. Right. Mm-hmm. And I also think it's a good thing that people are getting out. Right. And they're getting out to like nature, and even if it's just for the day. Right. Mm-hmm. I think it's like that disconnection, right, from reality, and that connection to your phone or your computer, or like just not questioning and just like going to your desk every day like a fucking lab mouse, like going to the water or the food. You know, I think it's like, it's healthy to take a pause and say like, do I really want that? Is that what my life is about? Should I keep going? Do I enjoy it? Right? Like what's value? How can I spend more time with my family? Should I work from home 2 days a week coming out of this? Right? Because like I'm a believer that everything reverts to the norm, right? On a human level. So like, this is going to end. And when it does, things will slowly there will be some things changed, right? Forever. But the lifestyle of like a typical New York business person, of just being like the absolute weekend warrior and like being on the planes and the road and like all that, I'm like, fuck that, dude. I don't want anything to do with that. Right. And I think it's
full grinder.
Yeah. Just like some of it makes no sense. Right.
Yeah.
And
I remember.
I think the realization that people can do these things virtually, you can have a conversation virtually, right? You can I'm not saying like there is some things that are better in person, for sure. Absolutely. I would prefer to do this entire show in person. Right. And I'll figure out ways to do that and integrate it. But I really believe that right now, if you let it, now is a time that you can take a step back and reevaluate everything you're doing. Right. And just kind of meditate on it. Right.
Interesting. I'm so uncomfortable with that. Like I'm not a step back person. I'm like, step forward into your uncomfort zone.
Right.
Discomfort zone, you know, like I'm and I have taken a pause in this moment in these 5 months, and like I've done different things, but it's not a good time for me to take a break. It's not a good time for me to you know, I don't know how to explain it, but I'm like, I feel like I live a pretty spiritual life. I meditate a lot. I work out a fair amount, even though I don't work out as much as I used to. And like, I have a healthy lifestyle. So it's like, it's not like I need to pause and be like, how can I do to make my lifestyle healthy? I'm like healthy. You know what I'm saying? So I'm like, I'm looking more for like optimizing, not the health, but like where am I going? Where's my family going? You know what I'm saying? And like right now, no one's going anywhere.
Right.
So I'm like, I don't like that. Like I just want, it doesn't have to be very fast, but like I just want this thing to have a current. It had a current before, and now this full stop is kind of like left people rudderless in a sense. Like I felt like that for a little bit, and now I'm just like, all right, there's no current. I'm making one.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Because like that's the one thing that is like really counterproductive for me and like my psyche, is not having a rhythm. Yeah. And already moving and being in a new place and like not really knowing what the rhythm is here, but kind of getting a taste of it and being like, that's not my flavor, but like y'all have that. Like I'm gonna make my own beat. Right. It is cool for me, but then like for everyone to be like, what, you're making a beat? This is no beat time. I'm like, I don't like that. Like I'm just gonna make a beat. Right. You know? So like I just And I know people are hurting. I'm hurting.
Yeah.
Like, I get it.
Yep.
Like, it's not, but it's like, whatever, dude. If this is the end, I'm not going out with a gasp.
Right.
Or a whimper, as they say. You know what I mean? It's still going to be like full congos.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
Like, I'm just not, it feels way better for me.
For sure. I think that's a fucking great attitude. I think not enough people have that attitude. It's like I think a lot of things in life boil down to what are you willing to do for it? Like, how bad do you want it? Right.
Yeah.
And I don't mean that in like, just go do things and do whatever it is. Right. But really like take the time to think about what your real outcome is. Right. Like what you're really doing and what you really want out of your work. Right. What you really want out of your family life or your home, and it can be difficult if you allow yourself to make it difficult. Right. You don't need resources to do that. Right. You need to be resourceful. Right.
Yeah. Industrious.
Right. And like, and there's always, like you were talking earlier about paving the way and going direct to consumer because there's some layers and stuff in the art game, right, that take away some of your value, right? That exists in everything though, right? And it exists in all aspects of commercial life, right? And one of the things that really like attracts me to like, hey, we're talking about van life, right? And part of that's like, I'm putting out the book. I want to do podcasts from the road. I don't want to do that on a plane and missing a week chunk here, or a 2-week chunk there with my family, right? That doesn't sound appealing to me. So I was like, van life. My wife's like, what the fuck are you talking about? We just got to paradise. You want to live out of a fucking van? And,
get used to it.
And I'm like, look, but I don't have an attachment to paradise anymore because paradise comes from within, right?
That is the key.
It's
attachments.
Yeah. It like you have to let go of that stuff, right? And like, it's just like I've stopped judging, and this took me years to develop, right? I mean, this is like the first step for me was like moving past that thing with my father, which I'm realizing was just a thing. My feeling toward him was just an experience that I was creating, right? And I can we're not super close, but I love the guy, right? I love him as a human being. I have no idea what he's been through. We've never really had, I mean, I do at some level. We've had conversations, right? But when I took him to dinner in like January of this year, I'm so thankful that I did it before all this shit happened because I was out there for work and I was like, something in me was like, just set up a dinner with him. So I did. And leading up to the dinner, like I moved through that business trip different than I had moved through any other business trip. Everything was quiet. Right. I wasn't even the meetings I had meetings set up and I went in and I just spoke from the heart. Right. And I had those meetings and they were great. And I created the time. I was like, let me, just give myself a few hours to like, before I connect with my dad. I went for a run, just like chilled out a little bit, thought about what this conversation was about. Right. And I was like, let me communicate to him that I don't have any blame for him. Right. And like, I don't have any charge for it. Right. And it was one of the best conversations I've had in my life with any human being. Right. It was quiet. Like we were in a crowded restaurant that was busy and it was just silent. And like he and I were there just having this conversation. We had a 4-hour conversation. Right. And I was like, let me invite him to be a part of my family. However, he feels that he can be a part of it. Right. Without like, you want to come hang out with us? Come hang out with us. The doors are open, right? You want to FaceTime once every 2 weeks or a month or 3 months? That I'm not going to judge. I know it's weird. It's weird for you and I to say that because I'm like, I go half a day without seeing my kids now. Like when they went back to school for 3 days, I was like, man, what did I miss? Like we have such a deep connection. But I think that permeates through everything in life, right? It permeates through how you're experiencing your workflow, how you're experiencing your finances, how you're experiencing your relationships, right? How you're experiencing being a parent, how you're experiencing interacting with your neighbors and society, right? And I don't know that there's a formula, right? I think everyone kind of has their own formula, right? And as soon as you're ready, the formula starts to flow, right? And I think it's just taking that time, creating that space is something that you do consciously, right?
Yeah, it's the work of the individual for sure.
Right.
And it's easy to just not do the work. I mean, no one tells you that that's work you have to do. You have to kind of have an awakening to even realize, like, oh, I got to do this work. Like, not everything is like DIY on this material plane.
Right.
You know?
Right.
I really feel that way. It's like you're talking about, if you want it bad enough, you'll make it happen. That doesn't mean you hire someone to do
Right.
it. It generally means you're going to do all the little bullet points that lead to the final thing.
Yep.
And people say, oh, you can't. You're bad at asking for help. It's like, no. The help that's available is generally subpar. It's better if you do it yourself.
Right.
You're going to educate yourself. And if someone comes along that can help you, you'll know maybe before they do.
Right. Right.
But yeah, it's a weird one. It's a really hard road, but there's the maximal gain there.
For sure.
There's the least amount of overhead with the highest amount of return.
Yeah.
So for business terms, it's like very wise to do it that way. But then just for life, like journey, like no one can go on your adventure for you.
Totally.
So you have to do it yourself. Like you have to have your own realizations. You can read them in a book, but it's not the same. You need to have your own like rite of passage.
Yeah. Totally. Yeah. And like learning to just enjoy it. Right. And just
so hard.
I think it's one of the biggest challenges of like really just letting go. Right.
Yeah.
Really just letting go of the expectations around the experience.
You know what's really trippy is you can let go. Like I was fully let go in San Francisco and then grabbed back on when I moved. And now I'm starting to let go again. And I feel much better and much more like my old self. But I literally created expectations and just went from like magical thinking of a productive sort that helped me move through my obstacles and really like turn the landscape into something magical for my family into like this really like lead foot thinking. And I don't know if it was environmental, but dude, some lady, a woman artist sent me a thing. She added me on Instagram maybe like 3 weeks ago, a month ago. And it was a quote of mine from like 1.5 years, 2 years ago. And it was like, the hardest thing about being a painter is enjoying the ride. It's going to be bumpy.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's crazy. It's so bumpy right now. And I hate it.
Yeah.
And I always make the metaphor to my wife about meditation and air travel because we don't like turbulence, that sucks.
Yeah.
But I've gotten so good at meditation that I can be like, whenever I get in a plane, I just start meditating as soon as I get on the plane. I'm like, probably for like, maybe sometimes I'll fall asleep, sometimes I won't, but like, I'll come out, I'll read a book, I'll draw, I'll watch a movie or something. But like if the turbulence gets real bad, I'll just hop into meditation and I don't care. And I can liken it to when I was a kid. I used to have to travel all the time, like because my mom was in Wisconsin and my dad was in California. And I'd have to fly by myself, like when I was like 7, 8, 9. And people were cool and it was fine. But I didn't mind turbulence. And when I got to be older though, I didn't like turbulence. And I connected it to the fact that like I was embarrassed if a plane crashed and I was on it. Like, how dare you go on a vacation? How dare you go to New York? Like, who do you think you are? Like, it was this weird guilt I had. And once I realized what it was, I was able to fly. But I was never comfortable with turbulence. And it was a control thing. And then the meditation gave me the metaphor for the fact of like, what difference is it to you what the weather's doing outside?
Totally.
You're just a consciousness inside a can, steel tin can, like, what does it matter? Like, you're in a metal bird that's in the wind and it's moving around and they're like bumps on a road. The road's not as paved here as it is somewhere else. And it's like, yeah, the plane can fall out of the sky, but what does that have to do with you? You're inside the plane meditating. And it's like the metaphor for like, just because you're in turbulence doesn't mean you have to feel any type of way about it.
Totally.
Like in a storm, it's like it's not personal.
Right.
Meditation really helped me like signal that out. But it's so interesting how quickly you lose. I personally, not one, but I lost the objectivity on that. You know, I never move. I haven't moved in like 22 years.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like moving, and I was like at this like zenith, and I moved, but part of the, you know, and I moved to a great place and this great experience, but it's like, I didn't bring everything with me.
Mm.
I didn't bring like my perspective and like some of my tools. And I literally had to like re-excavate them from my past. It's weird.
Yeah.
And unsettling.
I know exactly what you mean. Right.
Do you?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
Did any of that happen to you when you moved to Hawaii?
Not moving to Hawaii so much because I don't know the right way to express it exactly, but like my game was so tight around the things. I had thought so much about the things that were most important to me in my day to be in the moment. Right. And I had trained, I spent years training myself to just like be in the moment. Right. And what my formula before I get to this microphone and get to chat with incredible people is read, meditate. It puts me in this place of like just stillness, right? And this conversation is a form of that stillness, right? And I've gone in those waves, right? I've gone in those waves of like, man, I was like in the flow for a fucking month, and then something like what happened? I don't know what happened, right? And I think there's like a fear that we all have of like losing it. And every time I read, that's what everybody else is experiencing. Like if you've read Michael Singer, right? He's got I'm reading The Surrender Experiment right now, which is I think it's his second book, but it talks about his spiritual journey. It's incredible. He wrote a book called The Untethered Soul, which somebody gave me 2 years ago, a friend of mine. And it was just like, it was the first time I'd really read something about something beyond the self, right? I didn't grow up in any sort of like religion. You know, my mom was kind of just a hippie, right? Just spread love, right? And, there's things that happen in your life, right? And as these like what I'm realizing more and more is that like the expectations around those things, like where I thought I was going to be, right? Like where I thought I was going to be financially, where I thought I was going to be on a spiritual level, right? You can attach it to anything on a physical level with my family, the one-on-one time with each one of my kids, right? Like this optimal maximum thing. It's a fucking illusion. It's an illusion. You have it right now, right? You have it right now.
Yeah, that is the trick,
and
right?
Every time I slip out of it, I think you would love MetaHuman. I think like reading that book or audiobooking it right now, I think you would get a lot out of it, because I don't think you can just pick up that book cold and read it and be like, holy shit, right? I think it probably can happen to some people, but I think if you've started down that path of like doing some work on your awareness, right? MetaHuman rips it open. It did for me, right? It literally was like, oh, I understood it before, and I've had those experiences without reading anything, right? Just experience in life where you're just like silent, where it's like talking to my dad. There was time, you know, my wife and I were in Maui last year, and like it just happened, and it was there for days and weeks, and like it just exists, right? It comes back to, you know what it comes back to? Giving yourself permission to experience it in every moment. True. Right? And like, I think that the MetaHuman has like some exercises to do that are real basic, right? Like waking up, and when you wake up, don't focus on anything even if it's for 5 seconds, right? And then you let that consciousness flow. And what I've experienced from doing that is like, your whole day becomes conscious.
That's interesting. I did that today. I woke up and I noticed my son was cuddling me, because he sneaks into my bed when I'm asleep. A sleep burglar. But I like woke up and was like, oh, and like I just didn't think about anything, but we were cuddling, and I was like, this is great.
Right.
And I totally did, and my day has been great.
Yeah. But it's like really that can happen who says that can't happen every day? Right? Who says that can't happen every moment? It doesn't mean that there's not going to be the waves or flow of life, right? It means your consciousness is directed by you, right?
Yeah. Well, I think the move, I attached it to an expectation, and that really brings up the reason why it took me so long to come back to the starting point, the cadence of it, but you get back to like a let go and a re-evaluation of priorities. And also, I had this epiphany like a month ago, and it totally freed me up. And it was like, I took the expectation that I had moved into or around, and I just switched it and was like, oh, but it could go this way, and it could go that way. And it's not only I fixed it.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Like, so I can unfix it.
Right.
I can untether it. And like it, the table, we could turn it upside down and it could be a chair. You know what I'm saying? And it's like that level of play is how I make art. And that's how any good thing I've ever done works well. But I moved into a rigid expectation that I set for myself. And, at a convenient time when the world, all bets have been canceled, all bets are off. And so I was like, you do a lot of beating yourself up.
Right.
But it's not about that. It's about, and this talk is really helping me even more realize it's expectation based.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is, it's hard to do business or to show up for yourself or to be, an entrepreneur without expectation.
Right.
You're like, I need to chunk some data today or whatever. We ain't getting anything done.
Right.
But, the grace of it is the important thing.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I appreciate that, man. Cause like we always tap into that when we talk, right? We always, get it. Our conversation always goes to that place where like I was mentioning this to Johannes, who was my first guest, is like, I believe that we all are each other's guides, which I think is like, Ram Dass has a saying, like, we're all just walking each other home. Right. Yeah. And like, I've experienced we all become each other. Like in the moment of forgiving my father, I became his guide in that moment. Right. And he became mine in learning the value of forgiveness. Right. And letting go of that stuff. And I've had that experience with my son of like, dude, I signed him up for jujitsu first. Right. I didn't want to do it. I was doing Muay Thai and I'm like, I don't need to roll around with a bunch of dudes. Right. Let him do it. Right. He needs to toughen up. And he was pestering. He was vicious, man. He was vigilant. Right. And I tried it. And like, I think it's one of those things where I'm just so thankful for that experience because it opened me up to it. And I went hard last summer. I legitimately did at least 120 hours of jujitsu over the summer. Right. Like I was there 2, 3, 4 hours a day training and just absorbing everything I could because it just felt right, and I think life, like I'm testing those things. Like I know what you mean of like, well, if I don't have a plan, what's the plan? Right. And so I'm just testing those things in different aspects of life is like, what if I just do something? Right. What if I just I still write things down and make little notes, right? In case I get to a point where I'm like, oh, what was I going to do? But I've let go of a lot of that structure to just allow myself to flow. Right. And I don't know how it's going to turn out. And I don't need to, right? That's the test for me is like, I look at like what that move did for you was remind you of what you needed to tap into to get to that place. And look how quickly you got back into that place. Right.
Yeah. It's a trip, right?
It's incredible.
Well, the move was, that Jordan Peterson talks about this concept that I find super fascinating. And you're talking about it, but talks about the myth or the story Pinocchio, but the idea in mythology that you need to rescue your father from the belly of the beast. Like, and I witnessed that with my dad and my son. Like having a son and my dad wanting to have a relationship with him more than he wants to have a relationship with me. Not more than me, but like him just being so into it and not wanting it to be taken away from him and him expecting me to take it away from him because he was not a great dad. But me doing the opposite and giving it to him in a safe way where it's not harming my son, because he's still a dangerous individual.
Yeah.
Well, it just opened, it's like I rescued his mythology. Like, and that's, in this movie, that's what I was doing. Like, in a sense, like I'm making good. Like, my parents rent a house in Southern California. I own a house on the lakefront in the Midwest. Who's from the Midwest? My parents.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, who am I saving? Who's, I might not live here forever, but they might.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, it's a weird one. It's a weird thing. But like that concept of like, they talk about it in No Country for Old Men. That's what the dream sequence is in the end when he talks about his dad and the fire and the horn. And he's like, he was going to go out there and like light the way for me and all that darkness. But like, that mythology is so strong. It's like so strong for me. And I see it in so many places. And like, where I see the breakdown in our society is like when people aren't willing to do the work to like rescue their ancestors from the past. Like they're like, forgive the sins of their fathers, essentially.
Right.
Like, just because my dad's an alcoholic, like, doesn't mean I need to be one. Like, I'm not an alcoholic. I don't drink. But that's like, in a way, that's saving him. Like, he's a proud machismo man, but I was able to get him, and not even get him. I didn't manipulate him, but he told me that I'm more of a man than he'll ever be. And that, like, I didn't feel any type of way about it, but I felt like I rescued him and like letting him say that, because he started to go into the like make excuses and then start to apologize, and then he didn't have the tools and he didn't have the emotions to be present, but it kind of didn't matter because the job got done and he gets to be a granddad for the rest of his days, and like he also gets to see his son flourish, and it's like, I don't know. It's like I rescued him somehow. Like he gets to go to his great reward, and that's one less thing he has to answer for. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a trippy thing.
It is.
It's a trippy thing.
I think that's a form of like there's some level of consciousness within him that was passed on through you, right? And you took what you needed from that and developed it to a higher level of consciousness. Right.
I wholeheartedly believe that we pass our ancestry on. For
sure.
Like my son can paint and he can draw.
Yeah.
But he can't just paint and draw. He can paint and draw with my gesture.
Wow.
Already.
That's incredible.
Effortlessly. Stuff that he hasn't ever seen me paint because it's so old.
Wow.
Like he can just play. Like it's crazy.
Yeah.
And it's not even something that like is interesting or challenges him at all. But like if he picks something up to draw, it will be great.
Yeah.
Like he's very talented.
That's incredible.
Like his drawings he makes are incredible. Like he has crazy engineering and spatial skills, like amazing ones already. Like we were at a dinner at one of the early like Google engineer houses, like in San Francisco when he was going to this engineering like tech private school when we were there. And this guy was like one of the old dudes. Like he'd been around for a long time. And he was a nice guy. He had a crazy house and like up in Noe Valley, Upper Castro area. And his kid was there and they were playing, but they're different ages. And he had Legos. And my son put together this Lego and brought it back. And he was like, I made this. And he showed the engineer, and the engineer was like, you're how old? He was like, he was looking at it like it was so complex, and it had like axles into rods and into and moving parts and hinges, and it was like elaborate. And the engineer was like his face dropped.
Wow.
And yeah, my son just has that, and it's like ancestral. It comes across like through time, And I'll see that I don't think he has like the we don't tell him a lot of like what's proper, I mean beyond being polite, but we don't tell him, oh, that Lego's for a 10-year-old, you can't play with it. We're like, yeah, if you can put it together from the manual, then he'll put it together and then he'll take it apart and make it something else completely different.
Right.
For
sure.
But that I think there's a lot that comes across in our genetics that we don't.
Yeah. I'm seeing what you mean even more. My son has the gift of gab, which I don't know if that's a good thing, right? But he definitely, I see that in him as you're talking, right? Where like he he and I are both talkers, right? We love to talk, and we have incredible conversations. And one thing that came to mind is like, I was driving in New York City with my wife, Anna immigrated from Uzbekistan, and they came here with nothing, right? Her parents, it was her mom, her dad, her sister on a refugee program. And we were with my father-in-law, and my son was sitting in the back, and I think he was probably like 5 or 6. It was like a year or two ago. And he was looking up at Hudson Yards, and he's like, "Is that your building, Papa?" And my wife's dad was like, "No, I think that's like 3, 4, 5 generations away." Right. And I remember experiencing in that moment, he doesn't have that war that I went through of like, I've never built something that big. Right. And I don't know that I will, or if I'm even interested in that. Right.
Yeah.
But his experience was that you can build anything that you want. And the fact that it transcended and like skipped that generation, it was just an interesting reflective moment, right? I totally get the frame of reference of, my father-in-law, because he's like an incredible human. They came of age in the Soviet Union, right? And they saw society collapse, right? They were in milk and bread lines, and they came to America with nothing. They had to give up everything just to get here, right? And it was just fascinating. I was so taken by that moment of just realizing, what I really realized is like the true power and freedom that this country allows if you're open to it, right? It was like that, my son's view of potential, whether he pursues it or not, was completely transformed, right? And we're all in the car. We're all having the same experience right now. We're all looking up at this incredible building, right? But it was that, I don't know, for some reason, it just reminded me of that. It's like you do transfer those things, whether it's through your consciousness or your soul or what, scientific, I don't know. I don't know what it is, right?
I mean, I've had moments of like high ecstasy where I'm like, I don't know how to explain it, but I've had moments where I'm like, I'm me, but I'm not me.
Yeah.
Or like some biological chemical thing will happen where I'm very clearly like acting at the behest of my gene. Like when I met my wife, we're at a party and she was looking at me and I was like, "Oh, a really beautiful woman." Like she's looking at me. She did a couple more times and I was like, normally I like to sit on the sidelines. I'm not a big like go chat up the ladies. It's not my thing. But she kept looking at me in this way where I was like, "Do I know her?" Like, and finally, like, I wasn't going to do anything because I just was like, it's not part of my program. It's not what I'm doing. I'm doing something else, And my biology took over, like chemically at that point, and was like, it was like, go now, and it, like pushed me out the door, and then we started talking, and that was that. But that was one time in my life when I totally recognized, like chemically, like I'm not behind the driver's wheel. But not in the like lewd sense, but like the way she was looking at me was like, we have a relationship that I have amnesia over.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and she doesn't have amnesia, but our life together is amazing, and like it's like we've known each other forever, even though we've only been together like 8 years or something,
Yeah.
And it's a situation where I wonder about these things, like, does our DNA know each other? Like, are we chemically connected across time?
Right.
Biologically, chemically. But it was natural then, and it was unnatural for me to go, quote unquote, holler at her, but because I was also on a date. But that doesn't matter. Yeah. Anyways, the point is that
you were on a date with somebody else?
I was there with someone else, but that's beside the point.
Yeah.
My point though is that like I'm big on strangers, like I wouldn't go chat someone up just, it's not really my style. And I like to keep people I know around me. I like to be comfortable in social settings. But my biology like foisted me out. Like I was literally like, "Hey, there's like, do we know each other? Like, I'm getting the look that like, and it turned out we had met once before and it was brief, and I didn't mean for it to be forgettable, but I had just forgotten because it was like a real random encounter, like maybe 6-7 months earlier. And she was like, yeah, we met that one time. Don't you remember? And I was like, oh yeah. So she actually was coming from we've met and like, you should come chat with me. And then, but I was not aware, but chemically, like I felt like, my son is like evidence that like, definitely I was in the right place at the right time.
Yeah.
But he's amazing. But I just feel like there's a bigger plan. Our DNA sometimes is a bigger plan for us than we are even aware of.
For sure. Was that, did you guys like hit it off at that moment, or did you have like,
yes.
Okay.
No, yeah. It was like, I mean, she's beautiful and there was many suitors.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there was a guy right there who was like trying to drive a wedge.
Right.
And I was like talking to her and I was like, I'm sorry, hold on one second. I was like, and I knew him.
Yeah.
And I was like, is this your girlfriend or something? Like, what's happening? And he was like, no. And I was like, well, then leave us alone.
Yeah.
He was like laughing at me. He was like, you're ridiculous. You have no game. I was like, she was like, you should call me.
Yeah.
I'm like, why are you here?
Yeah.
Like, leave. It was weird. It was just weird. It was a weird situation.
It's the universe, man. I love hearing stories like that. I had something similar with Anna, but there was a gap, right? In that when we met, we both just had that strong connect. I was dating someone at the time. She was dating someone. And, I met her in college, right? In a class. And at the end of it, I was like, fuck, man, you better have the courage to say something to this girl. And I just grabbed her. I was like, hey, I just wanted to tell you something. I was like, I really like you. She's like, what does that mean? I don't even know. She was like fresh off the boat from Uzbekistan. She's like, what does that even mean? I was like, well, I have a girlfriend. She's like, so I don't understand what you're saying. She's like, super straight shooter. But we ran into each other a year and a half later. And from that moment, I wasn't in the place where I could be in that space, right? I had like recently moved to New York City and I just needed some freedom. But from when we started dating, it was like I proposed in 3 weeks, right?
Oh,
and we were married like
quick.
a year later.
Really?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was quick.
Awesome.
Like I knew when I met her that it's the same thing. Like we just had this connection that I was like, that is, that's like my future, right? That's my wife, right? I just knew it. It was weird.
Yeah, it's strange how that is, right?
Yeah.
I had something similar with the first girl I ever dated, and it was like years before I dated her, but I remember the first time I met her, I was at like a house party, like when I was a teenager, and like same thing, like the back of my brain was like there was someone in the back of my brain being like, hello, are you awake up there? And it was like, make a note. And I was like, what are you talking about? And, we met and we talked and it was like a thing. I ended up dating her for like 2 or 3 years later. And then we dated for like 5 years. But it was like similar kind of chemical draw. But not just chemical. It was like, I don't know how to explain it.
Yeah. I call that cellular. On the cellular. Like on the cellular level, right?
Yeah.
I don't know.
But I've been fortunate. I've had a lot of stuff like that happen for me in my life. And I, whether it's serendipity or I tend to lean towards serendipity versus like, oh, it's just a happy coincidence. There's like an unseen hand or an unseen, I keep going to the chemical because I think everything's chemical. I truly do. I think everything's chemical.
It's very scientific.
I mean, we're just a collection of chemicals.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, you have this version of yourself, but like your dopamine and serotonin and, many other chemicals, but like stuff that gets you one foot in front of the other is those two.
Yeah, that's true. For sure. Yeah. Yeah. It's, I agree with you. I think, everything happens for a reason, right? Whether you want it or you need it, the universe has that way of, putting those things in front of you. And I think that the art of it is like learning to just flow in it. Right. And I know there's like a bunch of people that go they go hard on like planning and financial and all this stuff. And I've done it, right? Cause I had to I'm a creator at heart, right? And I'm an artist at heart. And I had just blocked that for so long. So I was like, I need to be fucking practical to make it, right? And
Helps.
It definitely helped. Dude, I don't regret any of it, right? I really don't. I've taken away so much, and I hope I've given some back, right? And that I'm trying to do that more and more, right? Where I love this, right? I really do love this, and it's fun for me. And I think even in every conversation, there's some element that's getting released out to the universe that is important for somebody. I don't know who, but maybe it's important for me, or maybe it's important for you. Maybe it's important for everybody. I don't know, right? Maybe it's important for one person, but it's after the first episode, my mom called me and was like, that was incredible. And I was like,
really?
Yeah, I was like, you listened to the whole thing already? She was like, yeah, it made my day. Right. It really,
It's cool. You got one fan.
yeah, totally. I got one fan and one fan only.
That's like, my wife's mom, she's a fan of my art.
Yeah.
She's always like, yeah, she'll always message me. Like, I'm like, I got one fan.
There we go. Yeah. Well, dude, we just did 2 hours and 50 minutes. I think we should wrap it up on the note of love and destiny.
Love is the glue.
Yeah, for sure.
That's what they meant.
Yeah. Well, I really appreciate the time. I love the conversation. Can you do me a favor and tell people where to find you? Are you on Instagram? Anywhere else that you want to direct people for anybody that's listening?
Yeah, I'm on Instagram. It's RYS78. And then I have a website. It's victorreyesstudio.com.
Beautiful, man. I appreciate it. I'm going to hit stop on the recording, but don't close your browser, please.
I will not close my browser ever.
Thank you.
Never going to close
Never.
it.
It's always on.
I'm going to watch it.
Thanks, man.
All right.